Good morning. I'd like to call the January 17th, 2023 Bureau of Household Goods and Services Advisory Council meeting to order. This morning, we're going to be having a hybrid meeting, which means many of you have joined us here in Sacramento, so thank you for coming in person. And also, many are joining us on WebEx. The way it'll work is essentially we'll take some comments in the room, then we'll take some comments in WebEx. When I introduce Ann in just a few minutes, she'll actually go through that process in a little bit more detail. But before we do that, I figured I would take roll call. And with that, Pascal Benyamani.
Good morning, President.
Bert Grimes.
Present.
Tom Keepers.
Present.
Donald Lucas.
Present.
Sarah Oakley. Is Sarah on the panelist list, Alex?
Sarah is unable to join us this morning, Justin.
Oh, got it. Thank you so much for the update, Steve. Dan Rhodes.
Present.
Toby Taylor.
Present.
Steve Weidekamp.
Good morning.
All right. Oh, Steve's a nonconformist. He said good morning, everyone. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. With that, I'd like to welcome Bureau staff that's here today, as well as Melissa Gear, the Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations. She'll be talking to us very shortly. As well as online, Michael Knotz, our counsel, Lisa Rangel with DCA's Office of Information Services also will have a presentation for us fairly soon. And I'd like to thank Alex from the Public Affairs Office for assisting us as well. Alex, I forgot to practice your last name, otherwise I'd say it. Christescu. Okay, thank you so much, Alex. We also have DCA budget staff who are joining us today, as well as Ann Fitcher, who will be serving as our WebEx moderator today. Ann, would you mind walking through how WebEx participants can comment?
Certainly. And as a quick reminder, there are members of the public in the audience and meeting minutes are being taken. So we'll ask members and staff to please identify yourselves before speaking. But when public comment is requested, we'll turn on the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate this. We will have instructions on the screen as well. And I will leave it to Justin to decide if he wants to take in-person comments before WebEx related comments. But you will see a question mark icon appear in the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. You can type the word comment into that text box and click send, or you can also raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And each person will have 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning.
Thank you so much, Ann. And yes, we'll plan to take comment in the room first, and then I'll hand it over to Ann after we've had comment in the room for comment online. And with that, just a couple other housekeeping items before we move on to agenda item number 2. There is a fire exit actually directly behind Tom, so run to him if there's a problem. There's also an exit in the back of the room. In addition to that, the men's restrooms are directly outside the door here. And then if you go back to the lobby, across the way are the women's restrooms. And I think with that, we can move on to agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 2 is public comment for any items that are not on the agenda today. I ask that if you have an application, a complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the Bureau, that you not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. If your comments are related to a specific agenda item, you can actually wait until that agenda item to present your public comment. We'll take public comment at the end of each item, but you can also speak now if you choose to, or you can do both. Please note, we're going to be limiting, as Ann mentioned, public comment to 3 minutes. And with that, before I turn it over to the public, are there any members of the council in the room that would like to make any comments at this time? Any council on WebEx that would like to make comments at this time? Any members in the audience who would like to make public comment? Ann, would you open it up to public comment online?
Absolutely. So we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. You can look for the question mark icon in the lower right of your WebEx screen or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. If you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. And other participants on WebEx can look for the hand icon at the bottom row and click that to raise your hand to ask to be recognized. Are there any other public comment on items not on the agenda? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you so much, Ann.
You're welcome.
All right, with that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Melissa Gear. She is the Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations at Department of Consumer Affairs. Melissa.
Good morning. All right. So hello and good morning, Bureau Chief Paddock and council members. Happy New Year, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to provide the Department of Consumer Affairs update today. So my name is Melissa Gear, and I am the Deputy Director for Board and Bureau Relations. I was appointed by the governor in October and was most recently the Chief Deputy Legislative Director at the Department of Insurance. Prior to that, I've done some work in many different departments, which includes the Department of Justice, CalSTRS, the California State Teachers Retirement System, as well as the Legislative Analyst Office and the Department of Education. So I bring with me a breadth of state government and policy knowledge, and I am looking forward to working with all of you and using that knowledge to continue to protect California's consumers. So that's a little bit about me. I'd also like to give you an update on other DCA staff that have recently come on board. We have Yvonne Durantes as our new Assistant Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations. She came from Cal OES and was recently appointed as well in November. So I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to see and get to know her as well. In addition, we are also pleased to announce the appointment of Kathleen Nichols as Chief of the Division of Investigation. She was sworn in on December 5th. Ms. Nichols has extensive law enforcement experience with over 26 years of investigating and supervisory experience. The department has begun the process to fill the Deputy Chief position in the Health Quality Investigation Unit. Next update is regarding the DCA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. The department established its first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, or DEI committee, to guide the department's equity, strategy, initiatives, and action plans. The DEI committee held its official kickoff meeting on November 9th, and its second meeting will be held later this month. Additional resources will be forthcoming that the boards will be able to use, and bureaus, to incorporate into their strategic plans, recruitment processes, and et cetera. The committee will concentrate on 3 key areas: workforce, find and keep diverse talent; workplace, actively educate leaders and employees to raise awareness and foster an inclusive culture; and marketplace, be sensitive to the diverse background and perspectives of consumers, applicants, and licensees. We also have been busy working on our strategic plan to more effectively advance equity and drive outcomes that increase opportunity for all. Strategic plans for July 2023 and beyond must be developed or updated in accordance with Governor Gavin Newsom's executive order. DCA is revising its strategic planning processes to include more inclusive public engagement, data analysis, and the incorporation of diversity, equity, and inclusion into strategic planning. The DEI committee will provide input to the strategic planning processes in the coming months. DCA will begin implementing the revised processes and working with boards on updating existing strategic plans or developing new ones by March 2023. Along with our new strategic plan, we also have a new logo. DCA released its new strategic plan in November, and we officially transitioned to a new logo on January 3rd, 2023. The new logo will be implemented gradually throughout this year, and existing items with the previous DCA logo are still valid during the transition, and they don't need to be updated at this time. DCA, board, and bureau leadership have been given information and resources to help with the new logo's implementation. A centralized website is also available at www.dca.ca.gov/logo. The new plan and logo represents the department's next chapter and future, with consumer protection continuing to guide our mission and priorities. DCA holds itself to a high standard as a licensing entity, regulator, educator, and service provider. Additionally, the plan incorporates our strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as our shared commitment to each and every consumer. The new logo not only displays our state's official colors, but it also visually represents the DCA's vision, together protecting California consumers. The shield symbolizes DCA's strong and long-standing protection mandate. The state symbolizes all 40 million Californians DCA has pledged and is honored to serve. The star symbolizes consumer protection as DCA's true guiding principle, its own North Star. If you have any questions, please contact me, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Next update is related to board member travel. As travel resumes, keep in mind that all state travel arrangements must be made through DCA's authorized travel agency, Cal Travel Store or Concur. When traveling by air, an official state business, all board members and staff must use the most economical fares possible. Typically, this is the Southwest Wanna Get Away option. However, if the flight is changed, there may be additional charges. Flight changes for personal convenience are not permitted or justified, and the traveler is responsible for any associated charges. Please contact BBR if you have any travel questions. Required board member trainings and reminders. Now is the time to go over all of the necessary board member trainings and submit your certificates of completion to your executive officer and DCA. Board members must complete board member orientation training, or BMOT, within the first year of appointment or reappointment. Ethics training within 6 months of appointment and every 2 years thereafter. Sexual harassment prevention with the first year and every 2 years thereafter. And defensive driving training within the first year and every 4 years. For your convenience, these trainings are offered multiple times a year in a variety of formats. For more information, a mandatory trainings page has been created to help members identify, access, and track specified trainings. The page includes direct links to mandatory trainings as well as pertinent information and policies specific to those training courses. The page is available via the DCA Board Member Resource Center page under Required Board Member Training. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to me or Yvonne. As a look ahead, we have President's Training, February 22nd, 2023. The DCA invites presidents and vice presidents to our President's Training on February 22nd, 2023 from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The virtual 2-hour training will outline the role of a board president, including understanding the scope of the role, managing board members, and performing administrative duties. More information will be available soon. Also looking ahead, the end of COVID-19 state emergency waivers will be effective February 28th, 2023. The state of emergency and associated executive office orders will end on February 28, 2023. Upon the state of emergency ending, active waivers that were issued under the authority of the state of emergency and executive orders will also expire. Thank you for your dedicated service throughout the pandemic. We're getting close to wrapping up. Another update is related to our file annual Form 700s by March 15th, 2023. Board and committee members are required to file a statement of economic interest or Form 700 within 30 days of their appointment, annually and within 30 days of leaving office. This year's annual filing period covers the prior calendar year, January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. The deadline for filing is Friday, April 1st, 2023. To ensure compliance, DCA requests that Form 700 filers complete the e-filing by Friday, March 15th, 2023. You should have recently received an email from NetFile with instructions on how to file your annual Form 700. If you have any questions or would like more information, please contact me. And Board Member Orientation Training, or BMOT, March 22nd, 2023. Board members must complete BMOT within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. On March 22nd, 2023, BMOT will be offered as a live virtual day of training and possibly in person on June 20th, 2023 and October 10th, 2023. More information will be available soon. Members can sign up using DCA's Learning Management System, or LMS. And finally, thank you again for this opportunity. DCA and the BBR team look forward to working with and assisting you throughout the new year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And I'll note, at the same time, I saw Fauna write down a note. We both noted that you worked at Department of Insurance. We may have some legal questions for you, so we may be bugging you from time to time.
No problem.
With that said, any members of the council in the room who'd like to make any comment or have any questions for Melissa? Any members of the council on WebEx?
Yes, hi, Steve Whiteycamp, California Moving and Storage Association. Thank you, Melissa, for your report. I want to have fresh in my mind. My thought is that the DCA oversees 39 boards and bureaus. Is that correct?
Yes.
And of those 39 boards and bureaus, are there any others? I hope that you have some familiarity with our bureau. And the fact that we have three very disparate industries and cultures in it. Are there any others that the DCA supports?
Do you mind if I take a stab at it, Melissa?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
With my background, Steve, and I'll also open it up to Fauna, I don't think that there's a good corollary within DCA with that regard. I can't pull them all up in my head at the same time, but I think you're correct in saying that, yes, they are a bit of a differing industries, and I can't think of a good corollary within DCA.
The Bureau of Security and Investigative Services has 6 practice acts that it administers, but they're all related, unlike those administered by our bureau that are all not really related. So that would be the closest.
Yeah. And even said, there are some crossovers with these industries. It's just, I see a lot more crossovers within other DCA entities.
Thank you. And secondarily, just a follow-up to that, are there any other boards or bureaus that have their financials in multiple funds?
Yes, there are. I don't know what they are offhand. Maybe at the budget update, I'll ask Karen to pop up. I know many DCA entities have consolidated funds over the years, but I do know that there are still entities with multiple funds. I can't think of them off the top of my head. I'm happy to report back, though.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have not received, or I'm unaware of receiving an annual Form 700, I don't know if anyone else on the council has yet to see such an email, or if those have maybe actually not been sent out yet.
There are a couple of differing things between council members and board members. So, for example, unfortunately, you're all paying for your own travel when you come here. But I'm happy to follow up with you and the rest of the council about the Form 700 stuff.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from council members online? Any members of the public in the room who'd like to make a comment at this time? Ann, would you open it up for public comment online?
Absolutely. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If anyone has any comments on the DCA updates provided, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, or if you're on a mobile device, it'll be behind the 3-dot other options, or anyone may raise their hand to ask to be recognized. And if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. and each person will have 3 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much. We look forward to talking to you again in June. With that, we're going to turn to agenda item number 4. That's our business modernization update. Lisa Rangel, who's project director of our business modernization cohort 2, and some colleagues will be doing a presentation for us that I'm very excited about. As she's walking up and getting set up, I'll just talk for a few minutes. I think Lisa and I have had more meetings than I've had with other staff of late. I think Lisa takes the cake for meetings she has to attend, so I don't envy her. And also, she and Fauna share a trait. They're the only 2 people in the last year I've gotten 4 a.m. emails from, so thank you. Okay, they're working hard, guys. So with that, I will hand it over to Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. And there will definitely be more of those, so. All right. Did you share your screen? Yes, okay. All right, thank you all. Thank you, everybody. Like Justin mentioned, my name is Lisa Rangel. I am with the DCA's Project Management Office, and I am the project director for the Business Modernization Cohort 2 project. With me today is our system integrator partners, Tuin Verma. He is the director of technology with the Inluman company. Well, first of all, again, thank you, Justin, for inviting me today and the opportunity to provide the efforts that we've done so far with our business modernization project. I'd like to provide a brief overview before we dive into the demonstration from our last update in October, I believe. Just a brief overview. The Connect system is a cloud-based system, and again, we've branded it DCA Connect. It has online registration features such as application submittal, renewals, online complaints, the ability to submit credit card payments online, real-time application status, email and text notifications for application and licensing milestones such as application and renewal deficiencies, online deficiency remediation, license approval, and time to renew. Today, we will demonstrate how to register and connect, and we'll step through a few tabs of the household mover initial applications, submit a payment, show you a remediation of a deficiency, and then through approval, all while showing the email communication throughout the process. We've selected a lucky member of your advisory council member who will receive text messages while we register. So with that, Tuin, I will go ahead and turn it over to you to step us through the registration process.
Good morning. My name is Tuin Verma. I'm part of Inluman team. So I'll start with the registration process. This is the login page for the external user or the applicant, and they will need to click on the registration. I'll complete few pieces of information that's required to register in the system. And as I'm going through this, you can see that there are not many fields that's required for the registration. So I'll just
We're not seeing that screen.
And let's see.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is,
Steve, let me know when you can see it.
Thank you.
Is it now
No,
visible?
no, only in your small window.
Okay, share.
There should be.
There we go.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Sorry. So I'm here now. I'm completing the registration of the page of the external user, and I'm going to use this phone number. And as part of the notification process, the email and there should be an email that goes out and also a text message on that number. So I'll submit the registration. So the registration has been submitted, and there's a message that for the temporary password to check the email. So here is the email that we should have received right now. Did Justin
Did you
receive?
get the text message?
I did. So for the record, this meeting is recorded, and so in perpetuity, you now have my cell phone number forever. And I received the following text message, Tuan. Thank you for registering with the Bureau of Household Goods and Services. Please check your email for more information.
No.
Thank you. It's okay, we can just skip through and show it.
Okay, so the process is very simple, that you go through the temporary password and change the password to log into the dashboard. And we are going to go to the dashboard. We just wanted to show you the registration process, how simple that is, and the notification part of it. So Lisa.
Yep. Thank you, Tuan. Traditionally, we'll receive an email with a temp password and go through that process like you normally would when you first create a new account on any normal website. With that, we've pre-populated and pre-registered an application in order to save some time here for our demonstration. The application for household movers is a little bit lengthy, so we decided ahead of time to, again, save time and populate all but, I believe, 2 tabs to show you guys some of the functionality for upload features and some of the required fields and conditions within those fields. So Tuan's going to navigate to the pre-loaded application.
So I'm doing the same process. Now I'm an applicant who is logging into the system to complete the application that we started. We prepared and kept it ready. So let me just get them. So I'll log in. And I wanted to show you the login error message that you saw just a few seconds ago, just to, if there's a lot of validation built into the system. So this is the dashboard of the external user. The external user can start an application. In this case, we started the application and we pre-filled many of the tabs, as Lisa mentioned. So this, you don't have to complete the application in one setting. So one sitting. This is an example. So now what I'll do is, this application is in progress. I'll start this application, and we will go ahead and we left few of the tabs, as you see, and I'll mention about those tabs. So there's a lot of visual indicator in the application that makes it easier for the external user to know what they have completed and what's left. So the green check means those tabs have been completed, and the X means that those tabs either have not been completed or the required information have not been entered completely. So we left these few tabs so that we can show you how easy it is to complete these tabs. So this tab is the business company information. I'll go ahead and select the ownership type as partnership, and I'll just give the business name as demo company. And then I'll select yes here, so we can show you the document upload feature. The system allows the external user applicant to upload the document, and they're not limited to number of documents that they can upload. This is just a sample document that we have created. They can upload as many documents as they need to upload. And now when I click Save and Continue, as I have completed the required information on this tab, you will notice that the tab changes from X to green check. That is just a visual indicator to the applicant that, okay, they have completed all of these tabs, and they don't have to go in sequence. They can complete any tab in any order, and they can do it multiple sitting, like they don't have to do it in once they have logged in one go. So I'll go to statement of residency tab to complete this. As you can see, the type of ownership has pre-filled. I'll complete this information here. And all of you will also notice you will also notice something, that there are red asterisk. Red asterisk means that those fields are required and must be completed to move to the next tab. So I'll go ahead and save and continue. So as you will notice here, when I completed the tab statement of residency, it changed it to green check. You have one more tab, which is just a certification of submitted information. I'm going to go to that tab and complete that tab also. So we can go to the payment and make the payment online. So I've completed the certification of submitted our information, and now I am on the payment tab. The external users are allowed to make electronic payment. In this case, I'll just this is just a test credit card that we are going to use for the demo purpose.
So Steve, don't memorize that card number, it won't work.
So these screenshots are worthless then?
I didn't catch that, I'm sorry.
I said, so these screenshots are worthless then?
My cell phone's accurate, you can use that one.
I saw that one. I was making sure. Same one I had though, oddly enough.
So I'm going to go ahead and do a pay and submit. So it should give me a message that the payment is successful, and it should update the status of the application. If you noticed, when I started the application, the status was in progress. Now it shows as submitted. So the application is submitted, and I received multiple emails here. I'll open one of the emails to show you. It's a submission email. As you can see, it says the application submission, and I also received another email, which is the payment confirmation email, and also because this application has my cell phone number, so I received multiple messages on my cell phone about the, now the text notification, the applicant has option to opt out if they don't want to receive those text messages. So Lisa?
Yeah, and with that, we'll navigate to the back office, do a quick deficiency to show that process all the way through approval.
May I ask a question related to the payment process prior to that?
Yeah. Yes.
So this is Steve Weidekamp with California Moving and Storage Association. It appeared to me that the payments made do not require, as a lot of state or federal sites, require you to leave the website and go to any kind of external location. I want to make sure that would be correct for any transactions related to this system.
Yes, so do you want me to?
No, go ahead.
So the payment provider that we use, which is Elavon, they provide 3 different integration methods. For the user experience, we selected this integration method where the user does not have to leave the page. And so this is also PCI compliant method that we are using. And so the other method that you mentioned, they also have that integration method where you are taken to the hosted page, which is provided by the payment provider. So among the 3 methods, this is the method that was selected for this implementation.
Right.
And I think maybe just before, did you want to make another point on
No,
this?
I was just going to also mention that it's the same model that the Cohort 1 programs that are also on DCA Connect are utilizing as well.
And I think just before we move on to back office, just Steve had a question. I just want to see, does anyone else on the council have any questions in the room?
And I have a follow-up too when you have time.
Oh, hold on 1 second, Steve, we'll get to you.
One question regarding the credit card charge. Does the DCA absorb that, or is that something that you've negotiated something with the credit card companies?
At the moment, right now, for household goods, the model is to absorb that fee, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, when will this be available for the other?
Oh,
division?
excellent question. So the way that the rollout is working, because we have to come off of the Public Utilities Commission's IT system, household movers got the first pass. Exactly what you're seeing here will be built in the coming months. I don't know what the specific rollout is. Lisa can speak to it, but you'll see it for all 3 programs.
Right. Yeah, so the initial rollout for the household movers application that you're seeing today, we're looking at early spring, early March timeframe. So that's when this one will be. And then roughly after that, we're looking at about 4 to 5 months for our second release for the priorities that the Bureau has selected for the next release.
Will we have, the Bureau will now have information of email addresses Is that correct?
Yes,
So we can start sending out information to licensees
yes.
as what's happening if we're changing processes or new legislation or anything like that.
That's correct. As far as new legislation and general announcements, it would still be something you would subscribe to. But the thing I'm really excited about is, for example, like your renewal. If you register with the system and you have your email, you'll get a notification. That's what I'm really excited about.
Is there a way that we can be able to send out updates other than registering with the Bureau for the being on their preferred list?
I need to speak with legal in detail because I think there's some legal complications with when essentially a licensee or a registrant is giving their email to us, that there's a clear understanding of what they're opting in or not opting in for. So when we actually get to that build out part, I will consult with legal because I think I have some limitations, but I will try.
Okay.
Yeah. And any other questions in the room? Any questions for council members online?
Yeah, hi, this is Don Lucas. I have a couple questions. One is there any capability? I like the site, it looks pretty good. But if somebody gets really stuck, is there any real-time help where they can contact a person?
Yeah, there will be numbers, like for your guys' website, you can always call other household goods. You guys have a few messages on there to call.
Yeah, we have a phone tree where within about 3 beeps, you're going to get someone. And we actually put our system online. So now if you call us, people who are in the office and people who are also teleworking can take your call. But what I would say, Dawn, is if you're doing this application at 2 a.m., no, we're not picking up the phone. But anytime
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, we've got you.
Makes sense. Another question is this compatible with a mobile phone or an iPad type device? Because it looks like it's a fairly complicated screen, especially in the beginning, that might not work on a mobile device.
It is definitely tablet, smartphone compatible, yes.
Yeah, so the design is responsive, so it responds to the size of the device. So when you go to the mobile, the layout changes, but it allows you to complete the application. It's just a lot of entry on the mobile phone. Same thing with tablet.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. This is Steve Whiteycamp. So I did have a follow-up. So regarding the payment process, I'm very supportive of this model over others, even though you suggest that those have the same amount of security. I just think that this avoids any of confusion by the end user. I hope that when the quarterly fees are put in, that it will be exactly the same as this. And then also want to make sure that that staff understands that the frequency with which licensees and permittees get solicited, what I call fraud, by outside parties who become aware of licenses and fees. And so there needs to be a stress in communication that you will never be asked to go to any other website to make a payment or to download your Apple gift card.
Okay.
I'm making a note as we speak, Steve.
Actually did have a question, just to follow up. Tom Keepers Industry. What were the payment options available again?
On there, we have for household goods, it was check, money order, and credit card.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will have Tuan step through a brief overview of the back office deficiency process and then allow the external applicant to remediate that through approval.
Yes. So on my screen now, I switched my role. I'm not an applicant. I'm now a Board of Household Goods staff reviewing the application in the back office. So you will see that there's a queue, and I opened the application. This is the application that was submitted. You will see that there's a review button. I opened the application here, and I'm going to create a deficiency as part of my review process as a staff. So I'm going to create a deficiency in business company. And you will notice towards the bottom of the application, there are deficiencies that can be created, and the deficiencies are different for every tab, right? Every tab can have their own set of deficiency reasons. In this case, I'm just going to create a miscellaneous deficiency, and I'll just mention that testing for deficiency as a reason why I'm creating for the deficiency. Now, you also would have noticed when I was doing the application as an applicant, I don't see any of these deficiencies because only staff can create those deficiencies. So I'm going to save this, and then I will email the deficiency. The email deficiency will also send out text message because I have opted into the text message. If I would opted out, then I would not. So if you notice, this is a predefined template which can be configured. In the template, you will also notice that it pre-filled the deficiency that was selected by the staff. So if I would have selected more than one deficiency reasons, then it would have pre-filled all of them here. So I'll go ahead and do a send email. When I do a send email, the email will be sent to the email address on file of that applicant. And I'll go ahead and close the application in this case because I've created the deficiency and all other tabs looks good. So I'll go back to my email. Now you will notice that I received an email and I also received a text message. As when I received an email, you will see that the email says the applicant name and it says that there's a deficiency, please go to the dashboard. Now I'm again going to switch my role and I will become an applicant now, an external user applying for the license application, and I will log in as an applicant so I can show you the deficiency, how it looks like on the dashboard. So this is the dashboard that we saw when I logged in first time as an applicant, and you will notice now the status of the application has changed from submitted to deficient, and the action is deficiency. So when I click on deficiency, it will only open up the tabs that contains deficiency. So if there were more than one tabs in the application that had deficiency, then it would have opened up that tab. So you will notice here, it opened up this is X because this is deficient. And here you can see the comment entered by the staff. You cannot change the comment, but as an applicant, I can resolve the deficiency. I can check that applicant resolved, and then I can put my comment for the staff to review. So I can do, once I can do save and continue and then resubmit. And now my application has been submitted back or resubmitted back and the status is submitted. So I am done as an applicant. Now I'll go to the back office as a staff again. Now I'm switching my role again. I'm not an applicant, I'm a staff who is going to review the application. And I am back here. So I'll just refresh this page so that we can see, you can see that this application is back in submitted status. I'll click on review. There's one tab which was deficient, as you noticed here, this X, and now I'm going to that tab, and I will see what comments were provided by the applicant, or if there was anything else that was provided. And I saw that now I'm seeing as a staff that this deficiency resolved comment was provided by the applicant. As a staff, I'm going to resolve this deficiency. I'll click on save, and then I'll go to the final tab, which is the staff review tab, and I will approve this application because I noticed that all of the other items have been completed, and when clicking on the approve button, it approves the application. So let me go back here. Yeah, so there's an exam process in between where some of these applicants or some of the applications have to complete the exam. And when they complete the exam, we get the results back. And if it's passed, then the approve button gets enabled. If it's failed, then the approve. So in this case, we are just waiting for the exam results to come back from the testing provider, in this case, which is PSI, so that the approve button gets enabled and the application can be approved finally. So there's a lot of checks built into the system.
Thank you, Tuin. And also, once the application is approved, the user will be able to get the approval email as well as navigate to their dashboard and see the approved status of that application and then the license number above in the section that he was showing on the user dashboard with their license information for their expiration and new license number. And with that, that concludes our demonstration, and we'll be happy to answer any additional questions anyone may have.
So there is, you want me to approve this?
Go ahead. There's a little bit of.
So I just, looks like the process, we have a testing process where the exam results, we are simulating that process where the exam results came back, and I'm just going to click approve, and the application is now approved, and the license will be issued through the process of license issuance.
Thank you. This is a lower level environment, so it doesn't have as much horsepower as a production will, but ultimately came through. So thank you, guys. Thank you.
And there's an email of the approval of the application.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa and Tuan. With that, I'll open it to the council in the room. Do they have any additional questions, comments?
Yeah, this is Tom Keepers Industry. Just a quick question on, if you could just recap which, I'm going to use the word products, are going to be live in the system and when?
So for the first release would be the Household Movers initial application, and that will be early spring, so we're looking at roughly sometime in March. And then subsequent to that, the priorities that the household, or that the Bureau has selected for priorities for the second release.
So the next one after that is going to be essentially the quarterly reports. That's the second release. And again, the Household Movers gets the attention first because we're coming off of the Public Utilities Commission system by the end of the year. And so we're basically tackling the HHM functions. And then I don't think we've built out the calendar that far out, but essentially what will happen next is ERA and HUFTE. The complexity of the application for ERA and HUFTE is a lot less than it is for the Household Movers, so I don't foresee as much development. The other thing I would note, and Lisa could add to it, when it comes to the Household Mover program, it was sort of a first for the team because they were dealing with a system outside of DCA. The ERA and the HUFTE systems, they're very familiar with. The base system is actually called CAS, which is called the Consumer Affairs System. Okay, Consumer Affairs System. I just call it CAS. But they're incredibly familiar with that, and so I think that'll also be quicker. And I can probably give you a good calendar of that, at least the initial calendar, probably by June. Is that fair, Lisa?
That's fair. Yeah,
okay.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any additional questions for the council in the room? Any questions for council online?
Yes, hi, Steve Whiteycamp, California Moving and Storage Association. In our 10-13 minutes in the review of this process, we were told that the application was going to go live in December of 2022 and that the quarterlies would go live, basically, I'm assuming, in that March period, because our minutes reflect spring of 2023. So at this point, you're now saying that the application will go live in March of 2023. And when will the quarterlies actually go live, and why the delays?
Hi, Steve, this is Lisa. So for the delay, I can speak to identifying, not specifically for the household goods, but as a project overall, we identified some critical functionality that we needed to implement and build out before our first release. So including that time, those functionalities with addition of the time frame for testing of those functionalities. You wanted to ensure we had ample time for user acceptance, testing, and application from end to end, and ensuring that we had ample time to do so, so we decided to go ahead and push the date to the early spring date. And for release 2, after we release our March first release, we're looking at roughly about a 4 to 5 week cadence is what we're looking at for from release 1 to release 2 and then release 3. So roughly 4 to 5 months after our first release is when we expect to have our second release.
Did that answer your question, Steve?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions from the council online? Any questions from the public in the room? All right, Ann, would you mind opening it up to public comment online?
Certainly. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A in case people have questions. If you want to look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen or behind the 3-dot other options, and in that text box type the word comment, or you can raise your hand by looking for the hand icon and clicking once on it. If you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. We do have one request for comment from someone logged into WebEx as Michelle Jack. Michelle, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And you're unmuted.
To be sent electronically and available through the dashboard, or will they still be a paper license sent through regular postal mail?
Hi, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. So for the Connect system does have the functionality to both send it electronically for your certificate as well as self-print on the user dashboard. For the first release, that is not going to be available until it's prioritized by the Bureau to be enabled. With the other project, we're looking at, again, roughly 4 to 5 months after our first release, but the system does have the capability to do both.
Thank you.
And I see no further requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
That would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa, Tuan, thank you again very much. It's been a lot of work, and we really do appreciate it.
Thank you guys for being engaged. Appreciate you guys' engagement throughout the whole project.
May I make one final comment about the process, Justin?
Yeah, no problem, Steve. Maybe get a little bit closer to your phone or your microphone.
Thank you. Okay. I know we've had this discussion before about internal versus external. I would hope that the external facing pages of these applications would use CalT instead of MTR in all ways, in every time they engage with someone. It is still a point of confusion in communication with the state when someone's permit, the communication they says mentions MTR, and then they unfortunately put MTR in public facing areas. So I would just ask that it does not say MTR and it just says CalT related to all aspects of the application and any public facing documents that are going out from the website.
Well, I'm going to let Lisa take credit for this. She heard you and she implemented, so I'll let her just briefly speak to it.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, that is one of the, I think, highest priorities for household movers that I've heard. So yes, definitely that's something that our Agile team has been working on to finalize for this application. But yes, we've prefixed the CalT before the number for the license.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as far as this setting is concerned, Steve, I don't ever want to hear MTR again. Again, I'm not trying to denigrate the purpose of it. And then so what the terms will be is application number, and I'll tease Jacqueline a bit because I think she still says it, but application number for when you're in the application process, and then when you actually get issued, it would be CalT.
Okay.
Because those will be two different numbers, application number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when you're actually through the process, you'll get a number.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. All right, we will turn to agenda item number 5, which is review of our October 13th Advisory Council meeting minutes. You'll find those on page, 13 of your meeting materials packet. And with that, I will just open it up to council in the room. Does council in the room have any comments on the proposed minutes?
Just one minor edit on page 10 of the minutes or 22 of the packet. I believe under subsection F, the date should be winter 2023.
Let's see, winter, maybe I should rephrase it. We submitted it
This is from October, right?
Correct.
So I believe at the October meeting, you had mentioned you plan to submit the package by winter 2023 as opposed to winter 2022.
So I think this goes to my own ignorance. When I say winter 2023, I assume like November.
I see, okay.
Should I I don't know what I actually said in the meeting. I can review it.
No,
but...
I stand corrected. I withdraw the comment. No
Oh,
problem.
okay. The good news is Diana submitted it, but I don't quite remember what I said.
That's okay.
But now I just need to be better. Seasons are bad, especially when it comes
No,
to winter.
to me, winter is January, and
Got it.
that's why. So
You're probably right. I'm just misspeaking.
okay.
Okay.
I withdraw. I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes winter starts in October in Wisconsin, so just wanted you to know.
I think we just opened a whole debate here.
And ends in May.
All right. Any other additional comments on the minutes in the room? Any comments from the council online? Any comments from the public in the room? And would you mind opening up to public comment online?
Certainly. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature. And if you've got any comments on the minutes, you can look for the question mark icon, or you can raise your hand by pressing the hand icon. And if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. Any comments on the minutes? And I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you so much. And just sort of as background again, when we choose not to make any changes to the meeting minutes, we don't make a new document. We just ask that you rely on the meeting materials for those meeting minutes. In instances where we do make a change, then we post a new link when you're going to that meetings page. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 6. The first item under the division updates and statistical overviews is our fiscal update. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather Sands for the presentation. Heather.
Good morning. My name is Heather Sand, and I am the budget analyst with the DCA Budget Office. Karen Munoz, the budget manager, is attending in person, and she will be there to assist in answering any questions you may have. I wanted to thank the Bureau and the Advisory Council members for allowing me time to present the Bureau's fund condition statements. Today, I will speak to Agenda Item 6A, the fiscal update, and the meeting materials, which are the Bureau's fund conditions. These fund conditions give you a 5-year view of the Bureau's fund, and I will speak to each section, top to bottom, left to right. I will start with reviewing the fund condition for the Electronic Appliance Repair Fund, which should be on page 25. The first column is prior year 2021-22 actuals. The Bureau brought in a little over $2.6 million in revenue and expended close to $2.8 million, leaving the fund with a reserve balance of about $3.65 million, ending the fiscal year with 13.7 months in reserve. Months in reserve is the amount of time the Bureau can continue normal operations without incoming revenues. This ending balance of $3.65 million becomes the current year beginning balance, which you'll see at the top of column 2. The second column is the Bureau's current year 2022-23 projected revenue and expenditures. Based on fiscal month 5 data, the Bureau projects to receive an estimated $2.6 million in revenue, projects to expend approximately $3.2 million, leaving the Bureau with a months in reserve balance of 8.6. Then in the last 3 columns, you have the budget year 2023-24, budget year +1, 2024-25, and budget year +2, 2025-26. These projections are based on the recent governor's budget release. Budget year is projected at full assumptions as laid out in the governor's budget release, and budget year +1 and budget year +2 is assumed realized, meaning the Bureau's revenue is projected static and expenditures projected to full budget. I would like to point out, and this will be the case for all fund conditions, that one of the main driving factors to expenditures and the incremental increase in future years is a result of personal service adjustments. These include the general salary increases as well as employee comp and retirement rate adjustments. The budget office includes an ongoing 3% increase to expenditures on the fund conditions to account for these ongoing incremental changes. Are there any questions for this first fund? If not, I will
Any
move-
questions from the council in the room on the EAR fund? Any questions from the council online for the EAR fund? And I'll wait for public comment just until we go through all the funds, if that works, Heather.
Okay. Okay, so then I'll move on to the Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation Fund, which will be on page 26. We will just be going over prior year 21-22 and current year 22-23. For prior year, the Bureau brought in close to $5.7 million in revenue and expended close to $4.9 million, leaving the fund with a reserve balance of about $6.8 million. Current year, the Bureau projects to receive an estimated $5.6 million in revenue, project to expend almost $5.5 million, leaving the Bureau with a months in reserve balance of 12.7. Are there any questions on this fund?
Doesn't look like it. Any council members online who have questions for Hufty? Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to the Household Movers Fund on page 27. For prior year, the Bureau brought in a little over $4.2 million in revenue and expended just over $2 million, leaving the fund with a reserve balance of about $7.9 million. For current year, the
We're
Bureau
not seeing that screen.
You're not seeing a PowerPoint screen right now?
Just there, now we do. What went back? No.
Alex, could you go to the next, or Ann, could you?
My
the Household
apologies.
Movers one.
It's possible that our most recent PowerPoint did not have that slide included. My apologies.
I'm sorry.
It was there. It was there in between. It was that you kind of flashed on it for a second.
Oh, that might be slide 12.
That's probably it.
Got it. That's my fault, Steve. We didn't, I meant to break it up. My apologies. It'll actually be, what page? It'll be 27 in your packet if you've got that handy.
I have a printed copy.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Sure.
Okay, so for current year, the Bureau projects to receive almost $4.5 million in revenue, and they project to expend just over $3.5 million, which leaves the Bureau with a months in reserve balance of 29.0. Are there any questions on any of the three funds?
Yes, I have a question, a kind of a recurring question on our fund. And when I look at page 39, I see citations assessed, and I'm not, have yet to be clear where those are going to be reflected on this fund report.
So is that for?
We're talking about.
So Heather, for Household Movers, it wouldn't be citations assessed, Steve. It would be actually citations collected.
Okay, because we have about 100,000 in assessed here. So where are the collected on this document?
Heather, can you point to where citation collections would be within the various revenue lines?
Let me see. I don't know if Karen, is Karen in the area?
Hi, this is Karen. I'm the budget manager. I'm pulling up a quick report just so I can get more specifics, but usually it's going to be under other regulatory fees. It's usually within one of those two categories, but I can get more specifics in a few seconds. Let me pull up that report.
And Steve, I'm going to blame myself again. I think what you'd like to see moving forward, and I think you actually asked this of me in the last meeting, you'd actually like a pullout of that, correct? When it comes to the Household Movers Fund?
Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to have we'll ask for the next fund condition for citation collected. I do want to really thank the DCA budget staff. They wanted to make sure that they provided you up-to-date numbers, which required for January 10th when the governor releases his budget, and they were able to turn this around incredibly quickly. So thank you for that. And then we'll make sure that the citations collected is in the household movers moving forward.
Okay, were there
I'm just
any
making a note
other
to myself.
questions?
Any additional comments from the council online? Or in the room? Yeah, sorry, Bert.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick question. So I look at the home furnishings and thermal insulation. Okay, as we go down and we look at total revenues, they're actually going down. Okay, from, unless I'm reading this wrong, they go from the previous year, 56.72 down to 56.45. Okay, so they're going down. Correct?
I like to project, and so does budgets,
okay.
Worst case scenario. Correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, I believe we were pleasantly surprised with the actual.
Correct.
It was above normal.
Okay.
But we still like to kind of be pessimistic.
And then I come down to expenditures, and the expenditures from the actual 21-22 to the 22-23 are up 12%.
That's because of reversion.
Okay.
And this will actually be touched on when Kelly provides the administrative update in the next item. But for example, like vacancies and things of that nature. Karen or Heather, do you know do you have the Hufty reversion off the top of your head?
What was the question? Sorry?
The Hufty reversion for actual.
The reversion based on what they were budgeted for, and I don't have that off the top of my head. I can get that to you in the next few minutes. I can pull up that report. But a lot of the reversions, like Justin had said, was our personal services. Usually that's within that line item. And also just to note, in current year and budget year, we're also including the BizMod efforts. So the expenditures for that. That's why it's higher than previous years. So with BizMod going into full mode, it does increase the expenditures for those years. So for current year, 24.9 does include those efforts.
And then they always project salary increases of, I believe, 3% in the long term. But that's what I can do, Bert, is I'll get you the reversion. That's why you're seeing such a difference there. And we never speculate on a reversion moving out, which is, again, I think I said this in the previous meeting, but when you look at the year budget, you'll notice the actual was actually 2.7, almost 2.8 million. But you'll see a larger increase. That's also reversion. It's why I think that fund is going to be healthier than is projected, but I like to project worst case.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at the next year's up 22% over the previous year. So we're going the wrong way. That's going up, and our revenue's going down.
Got it. I think so. What I'll do is once we have actuals at the end of every year. When is fiscal month 13 usually? Is it by the October meeting we would have it, right?
Correct. I mean, if knock on, wood, hopefully we close in a normal year, August, September. Mm-hmm. So by in October, we're hoping to have all financials with actuals by October for sure.
So I think what I'll do, Bert, just as a matter of practice, I think, I'm not sure if everyone knows this, the budget year for the state of California it's a little bit odd. It's the July 1, whereas the rest of us personally, we're January, we're calendar year. So July 1 to the end of June. And so essentially, when you're getting into July, the budget office is closing out essentially the last fiscal year. So I think what I'll plan to do is each October, I'll report to you on what the actuals were compared to what the projections were. And then I'll also talk to you about reversions for all three funds, if that works. Yeah. Any additional council comments? And I'm writing furious notes because as agenda item number 9 notes, Yafana Lamar has taken a promotion, and so all these promises I'm making, I need to write down. All right, with that, I'll open it up to the public in the room. Any public comment in the room? Seeing none, Ann, would you mind opening it to public comment online? Ann, I'm not sure we can hear you.
My apologies. So we've enabled the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. You can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send, or you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Any questions on the budget presentation? And I do not see any questions or comments. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Heather, Karen, thank you so much for your presentation. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 6B, which is our administrative update, which Kelly Williams will provide.
We're not hearing anything if this is started.
We are. How's that?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Kelly Williams. I'm the administration manager, and I'll be giving you an update on staffing changes with the Bureau of Household Goods and Services. At Steve Weidecamp's request, I included an organizational chart showing activity by hiring unit. Please refer to page 29 of the meeting materials. Our effective vacancy rate is 30%. The effective vacancy rate backs out 3 positions the Bureau has opted not to fill due to fiscal considerations. Later in the meeting, Bureau Chief Justin Paddock will provide additional information on the vacancy rate. Here's a synopsis of hiring by unit. Starting with the Deputy Chief, a candidate has been identified and is under review. We anticipate a February 2023 start date. The Policy Unit has 1 vacancy, which was created when Fauna Lamar accepted a position as Legislative Chief with the Contractor State License Board. This position is on track to be posted in January 2023 and should be filled this quarter. The Licensing Unit has 1 vacant position, which is currently posted. The final filing date for this position is January 24th. We expect this position to be filled this quarter. Interviews are scheduled for the Compliance Unit's 3 vacant permanent analyst positions. We hope to have these positions filled by March. In addition, the Bureau has a request pending approval from headquarters to move a vacant office technician position from the admin unit to the compliance unit. We hope to have an office technician position posted for the compliance unit soon. The administrative unit has 1 vacant position. Interviews will be conducted this month. The position should be filled by March. Moving on to the special investigator positions. Interviews for the Northern California Special Investigators Unit were conducted in October to fill 4 vacant positions in Northern California. 2 candidates were identified and are in the final stages of their background checks. 2 remaining positions will be reposted in January, targeting the counties of Fresno, Merced, Stanislaus, and Tulare. The support analyst position in the Northern California Special Investigations Unit is part of the Bureau reorganization. This position will be moved to the investigations case analyst team. The lead case management analyst position will be posted shortly, and the support analyst will be posted as soon as the reorganization is approved. The Southern California Special Investigations team conducted interviews in September and has 3 candidates in the final stages of the hiring process. The remaining position targeting Los Angeles and Ventura counties will be posted this month. And I do want to draw your attention on the organizational chart for Southern California. It should show that there are 3 positions in background, not 2. Does the council have any questions? Anne, are there any public comments before we move on to the next topic?
We are opening up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you have any questions or comments, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for comment.
Okay, for our next topic, Justin will address the Bureau's vacancy rate.
Thank you so much, Kelly. So I just want to touch on this because I think hiring has been a big struggle for us this year, and I don't think I'm the only employer. This is the second time we've discussed it at the council meeting. I think I've got to do a couple of things. One of which is I personally believe it's important for the special investigators to essentially issue something known as infractions, where in certain instances we can make sure that they appear before a court of law. So we have a more exhaustive background for that reason for our special investigators. And I think as much as I'd really like to cut a corner and start them and then have that background, I just would bring myself into a really sticky situation if their background didn't eventually clear. And so, again, as much as I'd really like to see those positions filled, I don't want to rush it. I'd rather be satisfied with the end result of the staffer I have. And so that's just a reality. The Division of Investigation at DCA conducts those background investigations. I thank them very much. They keep us in the loop. They're incredibly thorough, as they should be, and they just take time. With that being said, when it comes to the vacancies within the other units, I think I essentially just really need to open it up to telework more. I've noticed one of the most appealing things it seems that I can offer someone, especially really high-performing individuals at other state offices, is if I offer more telework than their current employer, they're coming. And I think that's just sort of a reality that I'm starting to face, and that we're going to be considering in our advertisements, as well as when we're having individual conversations with staff, is just expanding telework more. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to council comments. I know many of you are employers as well. Any advice is welcome, because I'd really like less red on this page. So first, for the council in the room.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for those comments. And as an employment attorney, telework has become the new thing. More flexibility will definitely, I think, increase the number of candidates that will come across your desk. So, and I know a lot of employers are struggling with that, but this is the decision that you'll have to make and see where it goes.
Yeah, this is Tom Keepers Industry. I would just echo Pascal's comments. Having just hired up a team last summer into the fall, it was amazing how many candidates, when you asked them why they wanted this job, the very first thing they said was remote work. which I don't find to be a great driver of motivation. I'm like, okay, really? You hate your socks? I mean, so I think you're on the right track with telework. We just posted it on LinkedIn, and if it's remote work out there, boom, you're getting people. So you're on the right path. Thank you.
Any comment from council members online?
Yeah, this is Don Lucas. I'm just curious if your bureau's vacancy rate is comparable to the other bureaus in DCA. Is there something unique about your group?
Donald, I actually don't know the answer to that question. I'm not sure. Anecdotally, I can tell you, I certainly talk with a lot of my other colleagues who are running programs, and I know anecdotally it's a frustration when it comes to hiring, but I don't know their specific vacancy rates. I can actually conduct inquiries. I'm not sure, but I think it's an apt question. What is my grade compared to my colleagues?
Great, thank you.
So I have 2 points, Steve Whitecamp, California Moving and Storage Association. First of all, thank you for adding that org chart. I think that it's be helpful in every meeting so that we can kind of more clearly see exactly where we're at as far as staffing. So adding this visual is extremely helpful. And I think I would be marketing the fun of being involved with BCH, of one day tracking down a bad actor who's scamming consumers, and the next day making sure people aren't ripping tags off mattresses. You do that and you got a sure winner right there.
God, I appreciate it, Steve. So we will make sure to continue to input this org chart. Each and every council meeting will have this in the packet. It seems like a good opportunity just before I open it up to additional comment. The reorg that we're looking at is essentially and this is currently under review, so there could be changes. The big change will be if you look at the compliance unit, which is second from the left near the bottom. The compliance unit is essentially an enforcement unit which has two functions, one of which is sort of intake of complaints. And then they either conduct desk investigations or, based on the circumstances around the complaint, if field work is required, they refer it to the investigations unit. And they also offer mediation to consumers. So in instances where violations are minor or not significant, and or the consumer really needs to be made whole quickly because of some sort of emergency, mediation is happening at the same time an investigation is happening against the licensee. So they're essentially handling both those functions. I eventually, the big request is to move them into essentially the rest of the enforcement unit, which falls under what's the supervising special investigator to Rick Vellucci at the moment. So that individual will answer to them. And then the one other thing is the laboratory would essentially answer to the deputy chief. And so you can almost look at the bureau as having two chiefs. It would be that Rick Vellucci position as one chief, and then the other, the deputy chief, handling the non-enforcement related functions. So it's currently under review, and we'll certainly follow up on what changes may happen. There's a lot of technical things that we need to take into account, such as sort of the salary of everyone involved. But once I actually get approval, we'll report that back.
So just an additional comment, if I may. This is Tom Keepers. And I'm just making a suggestion here to add to Steve's great idea of having the chart in here. If there's any way to put scorekeeping on here, in other words, what's changed since last time.
Oh, okay.
So it might say, I think you decided, was there a couple positions you decided not to fill? So put that on there, how many we've filled since last time, and then how many have become vacant since last time. That might just help us understand how at a glance, it gives us insights into progress from one meeting to the next.
Got it.
And don't have to do it. I'm opening up for comment, see if anyone else is interested, just to kind of what's happened since last time.
Dan Rhodes here. I think that would be helpful. In looking at this, I'm going, wow, we filled 30 some odd positions, but then my mind went and said, well, how long did it take to fill those 30 some odd positions? And I'm assuming this is in the calendar year of 2022 to the current. But I would say hats off, fill in 30 plus positions with only, it looks to be like 16 vacant. I think that's a room for celebration there.
Right, and I think I'm happy to do that, Tom, and it's more helpful anyway because I can blame Fauna because she hurt my vacancy rate.
Yeah.
Any additional questions from the council or comments? All right, any questions from the public here in the room? Any questions from the public online, Ian?
And we have the Q&A open for public comments on the administrative report. If you'd like to make a comment, look for the question mark. In that text box that appears, you can type the word comment and click send, or anyone may raise their hand to comment by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise your hand. Are there any comments on the administrative report? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you, Ed, and we'll hand it back to Kelly.
Thank you, Justin. So during the October Advisory Council meeting, I provided detailed information on how the admin team plans to contribute towards the Bureau's long-term strategic plan. Today, I'm going to touch on a few items that we've incorporated since the last meeting. We continue to evaluate and modify the requirements for application packages and screening criteria to target the broadest and most qualified audience. We've created tools such as forms and templates to increase accuracy and efficiency in hiring. We're using alternative recruiting options such as advertising in the Capitol Morning Report for some positions and also advertising telework for some positions. Applications are evaluated and scored as they flow in so that interviews can be conducted immediately after the final filing date. And we're coordinating with the hiring managers to ensure that interviews can be conducted immediately after the final filing date. In December, we submitted a reorganization request to DCA headquarters. Once approved, this reorganization will allow us to reallocate some vacant positions to provide a greater level of support. We filled 15 positions since the beginning of 2022 and have 4 candidates in the final stages of hiring process, as well as 2 candidates undergoing background checks. Filling vacant positions with qualified candidates will continue to be admin's top priority. Does the council have any questions? So Anne, are there any public comments before we move on to the next topic?
I'll go ahead and open up the WebEx Q&A for comments on the strategic plan update. If there are any comments, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. And I do not see any requests for public comment.
All right, thank you very much, Kelly, for the administration update. I'd also just like to add, Kelly's team is doing a phenomenal job onboarding. I don't know about the other hiring managers on the council, but getting someone's computer set up, getting their email account working, getting various access codes. The fact that I do it maybe twice a year means I do not do it well. Kelly's team does a phenomenal job. There's quite a few of our new employees who have commented that they were just really excited that day one, they knew what they were supposed to do, they had their accounts ready to go, and so thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will turn to agenda item number 6C, which is our licensing statistical overview, which will be held by Jacqueline, who's joining us online. Jacqueline.
Justin, can I ask a question before you move on?
Oh, sure. Well,
I was just wondering what your plans are for either a break or a lunch today, since we're at the hour-and-a-half mark.
What's the feeling for council members? I'm actually surprised that I'm looking at the clock. It's 11:30. Don, what's your vote? Donald, did you take your break already? That's what Bert just said. He may be having technical issues. I'll just turn it to the other councils. Would anyone like to take, and maybe when we finish up item 6, we can take like a 15-minute break? Would that be the preference? Would you like to pursue?
Yeah, I would say we could take a short break and then move through to finish the agenda.
Okay. Dawn, is that all right? About a 15-minute break once we're done with items on number 6?
Justin, how far are we through this?
We're on, when we wrap up item 6, what I would say is item 7, the minute I say this out loud, I'll be wrong. It's probably going to be about 30 minutes.
Then yeah, I could use a restroom.
Okay. All right. So I think what we'll plan to do is a 15-minute break once we finish up items on number 6, if that works for everyone. Okay. With that, we will turn it over to Jacqueline. Thank you. Jacqueline, you may be muted.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Castro. I'm the licensing manager for the Bureau, and I'll be reporting on the licensing statistics for the last 3 months, starting on page 31. Within electronic and appliance repair registrations, there was a decrease in service contract seller registrations due to delinquencies and cancellations. Most service contract seller registrations are part of chain stores with several locations. In reaching out to the chain contacts, the Bureau is often informed that due to high employee turnover within businesses, there's a failure to communicate information regarding registration renewals to their new staff, and this is why registrations go unpaid. In an effort to mitigate this issue, the Bureau continues to mail delinquency notices to licensees, which provide the licensees the opportunity to notify the Bureau if they are no longer in business or if there's been any change of address. Home furnishings and thermal insulation licenses continue to remain consistent within the last quarter. Within household movers, there was a small decrease in the number of new permits issued, but an increase in the number of total active household mover permits. This is due to permit holders resolving issues and returning to good standing. There was also an increase in exams administered with a pass rate of 93%. Regarding household mover quarterly revenue, there continues to be a steady increase in the total revenue collected as outstanding revenue is received. At the last advisory council meeting, the council requested that the Bureau make a distinction between the number of total active household mover permits and the number of quarterly reports received. Please note that the language has been revised as requested. This concludes the licensing statistical overview. Does the council have any questions?
Any council members on the line? Everyone in the room, I think, looks good.
No question. Just thank you, Jacqueline, for making that distinction in the quarterly report.
You're so welcome. Do we have any comments, any public comment?
And this is the moderator. We're opening up the Q&A for public comments. Anyone who wishes to comment on the licensing stats can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box, and then click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. And I do not see any requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you so much, Ann.
You bet.
I'm now going to go over the strategic plan updates from the last meeting for licensing. Strategic Plan 1.1, establishing licensing processes and procedures to streamline workflow. At the last meeting, I discussed the delinquency procedure the licensing unit established to assist with timely processing of licensing renewals and delinquencies. Since then, the licensing unit has started to see a favorable response rate to the notice being mailed in an attempt to resolve fees owed. In addition, Enforcement Special Investigator Del Chase and Field Inspector Teresa Baeza have been instrumental in making contact with businesses the licensing unit is unable to reach by conducting a field visit and making direct contact. Thank you, Del and Teresa, for your assistance. We truly appreciate you. The licensing unit has also seen an improvement in the response rate related to chains, businesses with multiple locations, due to standardized templates concerning renewal fees and due dates. Moving on to Strategic Plan 1.2, review and enhance customer service standards to carry out the mission of the Bureau. The licensing unit continues to make progress towards enhancing customer service standards by responding to licensees and applicants in a timely manner and providing them information to ensure they are compliant with licensure requirements. Strategic Plan 1.3, continually improve online services to increase compliance and reduce barriers to licensure. As seen in the previous demo conducted by Lisa, the household mover application will be online soon, looks like early March, and the household mover quarterly reporting will be available online at the end of the year in the second release. Strategic Plan 1.4, streamline the electronic filing process for insurance companies to decrease reporting timeframes and increase compliance by household movers. The e-filing system is planned for development as part of the Business Modernization Project. It is currently in production, and we will keep you apprised as we have updates. This concludes the licensing strategic plan updates. Does the council have any questions? Are there any questions from the council on the WebEx? Okay, Anne, can we open it up for public comment?
Absolutely. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A for comments on the strategic plan update. You may look for the question mark icon and type the word comment into that text box and send, or you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jacqueline. And Jacqueline gets the gold star again as having the lowest vacancy rate in the Bureau. So thank you for that too, Jacqueline. All right, with that, we will move on to agenda item number 60, the laboratory statistical overview, which will actually be conducted by Jacob Ecker. Jacob.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Jake Eger. I'm an environmental scientist with the Bureau. I'm going to be providing an update for the lab. As I said in the last advisory council meeting, Rosemary Pacoda is retired as last year, and responsibilities are being shared amongst existing staff. Christina, our newest environmental scientist, has been an amazing addition. She's really jumped in and kind of lessened the load on the rest of the lab staff, so it's much appreciated. And as a quick rundown of positions that are empty with the lab, the senior environmental scientist or the lab supervisor position is empty. The lab's analyst position or the OT position, which would be handling thermal insulation directory and receiving samples. And then also the last two are textile technicians, which are really in charge of breaking down furniture and running flammability and thermal insulation tests. And all those vacancies kind of leave us at around a 36 to 40% vacancy rate. So unless you're new to the Bureau, you've heard many times before about accreditation. The lab undergoes accreditation every year for each program, or every other year for each program. The best way to describe accreditation for the lab is a deep audit to verify that the lab has appropriate quality management systems and can appropriately use our own test methods we're working off of. In September 2022, the thermal insulation program underwent NAVLAB for the National Voluntary Laboratory Accreditation Program. And in April 2023, the Home Furnishings and Bedding Program will undergo accreditation with IAS, or the International Accreditation System. On the topic of thermal insulation, the thermal insulation directory will be posted at the end of the month, and hopefully Dylan can rest easy for a couple months. For outreach, we will be attending the IAPL, or the International Association of Bedding and Furniture Labeling Officials Conference, April 26th to 27th of 2023 in Portland, Maine. Also, the lab published a document in November 2022, which you can find on the website, called Common Filling Materials and Terms Used on Law Labels. This document has some pictures and some definitions of the most common filling materials. Thanks again, Dylan. We also plan to post an overview of finish size by the end of the year, and that kind of concludes the outreach. So on to aging equipment. Last advisory council meeting, we talked about equipment that went out. In July of 2022, the Bureau purchased a new Fourier Transform Infrared Spectrometer, or FTIR as we'll refer to it. It's kind of a long name. And this is used for fiber analysis and just to really complete out samples. This allows the furniture and bedding program to resume chemical analysis and really go through the law labels. And before I go into the statistics, I'd like to open the floor to comment to members in the room.
Quick question. You said that you can do chemical analysis now?
Well, we've always done chemical analysis.
What do we send out to toxic?
That would be Department of Toxic Substance Control, and that would be the FR chemicals. The chemical analysis I'm talking about is basically what's on your law label, so that would be like polyurethane foam, any of the filling materials.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and opening the floor to council members that are online. And opening floor to public comment.
And this is the WebEx moderator. If anyone online would like to comment on the lab's report, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment into the text box and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each commenter will have 3 minutes. And I do not see any requests for comment from WebEx. I assume there are no requests for comment in person as well. I can close the Q&A.
Yes, thank you, Ann.
You bet.
All right, so hopping into statistics here. On page 33 of your packet, and also the first slide here, the first section here is going to be the first testing section is TB 117 2013. An overview is we have an average of 1 failing flammability sample per quarter, and there's a drop between the first 2 quarters on the chart compared to the last 2, and this is because we had to replace our FTIR and then also staffing issues as well, and purchasing with the state can kind of be a lengthy process. So the next test type is our full-scale test, or 16 CFR 1633 on the chart there, and we're averaging 1 failure per quarter with 4 passing samples. The third test type is thermal insulation testing, and on average 2 samples are failing thermal insulation while 2 are passing. And this includes for each sample failing, it would just be if it fails any test, it wouldn't be counted for each individual test. So it's the total sample. And then for the last, I would like to turn everyone's attention to the bedding statistics. For anybody who did their homework from the last advisory council meeting, you might see a significant increase in failures. And this is because the Bureau inadvertently excluded bedding finish size and net weight failures into that. Previous quarters have been updated to reflect those failures. And this data does not include label failures for bedding. And we'll talk about the label failures shortly. And a little side note, we've really only changed how the bedding statistics are reported to the advisory council. We haven't changed any enforcement action. And then for the numbers, we are averaging 2 passing samples and 2 failing samples a quarter for bedding. And for total tests, we average out to 18 passes with 5 failures, and that includes everything we've talked about so far. And going on to label review, which is our next slide. I believe it is on the same page as in the packet. So on average, 4 labels are completely passing per quarter, and this means that there's no issues with the label. It's a perfect label, you're getting reimbursed, good job. For minor labeling violations, we've had 5 per quarter. This means that there was something wrong, but it was minor enough where we're going to reimburse you, but we'll still count it as a violation. There are 11 products with moderate violations. Moderate violations means there was enough wrong with the label that the business won't get reimbursed, but there will be no enforcement action going forward. And we average 1 major failure for a label each quarter, and this means that no reimbursement is going to occur and enforcement action will be taken. Moving on to flame retardant chemical statement analysis. Across the board, everyone has been checking the no added flame retardant chemicals except for 1 manufacturer in Q2 of 2022. For the actual DTSC analysis, if we turn to page 34 and stay on the same slide, there has only been 1 flame retardant chemical failure, and this was in Q1 of 2022. So if we turn to the third slide, this will get into manufacturing locations of test failures. And on average, there was 1 TB117 2013 failure per quarter from a foreign manufacturer, and none for the rest. For furniture testing, on average, there were no failures except for 1 failure from a California manufacturer and 1 failure from another state manufacturer. For thermal insulation, there were 2 samples a quarter that failed out of state. For bedding, on average, 2 samples were failing from international manufacturers. And for law labels, on average, 3 California samples are failing law labels a quarter. Manufacturers in other states are averaging 2 products with failing labels per quarter, and international are averaging 11 failing labels per quarter. For DTSC chemical content analysis, manufacturers seem to figure out that you don't need flame retardants to pass TB117 2013, except for 1 international manufacturer. And now if we circle back to law labels before we open the comments, starting on page 35 of the packet, or 4th slide, the lab is providing 2 graphics regarding labels. For the first graphic titled "The Label Results," we're providing a more visual breakdown of the data for label violations, and I'll run through the key real quick here. The dark green is a completely passing label. Light green is labels with minor violations. Yellow is moderate violations, and red being major violations. At the end of Q1 of 2022, there's going to be a drop because we lost one of our environmental scientists. That brought us down to 2. And at the start of 2022, Q2, our FTIR broke, which really affected the bedding and furniture program from completing out samples. And then in Q3 of 2022, we lost our supervisor and gained our new environmental scientist. So if we go to the next graphic here, which is the next slide, and also on page 36 of the packet. This graphic is label results by location, so keep in mind the same color key there. This graphic shows that international manufacturer samples are being picked up at a rate 2 to 3 times more than samples manufactured in the US, and it seems like similar label results are happening per location. So I will open the floor to comment for council members in the room.
Yeah, just the timekeeper's quick question. For the labor results, are you seeing a decrease because you're like cleaning up the environment here, or is it a decrease because you have fewer, like product or reviews coming in? Like, is it a function of quality or incoming?
So are you talking about the numbers here?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the bar charts. Yeah, how it's going down.
So it's more that we got less samples because our equipment went out, and then also we lost some employees as well, so we weren't able to do as many products per quarter.
Okay.
That's kind of what it's showing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So Tom, for the second factor, you'd almost look at the height of the bar of how much we pulled, just total height of the bar, and then you'd actually look within it about what the color variation is over time. Yeah.
Well, I just have one comment. I hope that the law label revision we're working on now should reduce some of these violations. They're simpler, they're not as complex. Had a friend of mine who just got one, and he used a type 1 label instead of a type 2 label, so he was in violation. Now, well, that'll be combined in just one label. So.
Well, and Bert, because he knows you, it's going to be a harder enforcement action.
One comment and a question. So the comment, thank you so much for the information, especially the bar graphs. It's so much easier to kind of digest the info, so really appreciate that. The one question I had in regards to the slide where we're looking at on the far right, where we have outside USA, do you know, and I don't expect you to know right now, but do you know if the violations that are shown there are strictly importers, or do they have a presence in the U.S., but they import and then sell in the U.S., or is it more direct ship? Is there any way of knowing that?
This graph doesn't show it, but it's just putting it by manufacturer of where things are manufactured, not importer.
Got it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
To touch on your point just a little bit, Pascal, we really do want to start, I'm just going to say it, even though council may stop me. We're looking to buy some stuff on Amazon. It's really tricky at the state. But for the most part, you're still seeing us go to retailers. We do go to the occasional importer, but for the most part, you're still seeing us go to retailers.
Right. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, I'll open the floor to council members joining us online.
Yeah, hi, this is Don Lucas. Thank you for the additional information. That's helpful. I guess my question is, can you give us an update on how the labeling is going, the new labeling, and how the interaction with CPSC is going?
You're talking about the regulations, or you're talking about what exactly for labels?
Oh, the labeling coordination with the CPSC.
I'm having trouble here. Do you mean, I'm sorry, Department of Toxic Substances Control, Don?
No, the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that is the regulatory item. My apologies, Don. So we've actually, I'm going to look at Diana to make sure what I'm about to say isn't inaccurate. We've submitted to DCA that regulatory proposal. And the point of some of those changes is to be consistent with CPSC and just to make sure that we're in full, essentially, when you comply federally, you'll comply with California requirements when it comes to that portion of the label. And Diana will give a more brief update, but I really do want to thank Pascal and Bert for their quite a lot of work on that regulatory package, as well as BIFMA. Any more informal comments individuals have, I'm happy to share the draft language, but that's been submitted to DCA, and we're working on getting that package through the process.
Great, thanks.
And if there's not any more comments, we can open to public comment.
And this is the moderator, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, and then in the text box that opens, type comment and click send. Or you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on the rest of the lab report? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jake. I do want to call out Jake and his colleagues had the idea for that graph. I loved it, but I'm not taking credit for it. That was all their idea. A couple of other things they've done is, I always screw this up. I think it's called a Microsoft One document. Am I getting this right? There's a way, I am the worst IT person, I'm sorry. There's a way for the lab to develop a document that our staff can access so long as they have a cell phone signal. And they're working on that. It's a Microsoft thing. And by using that, as long as our staff in the field have a cell phone signal, they'll be able to see how often and from where furniture products have been pulled, so we're not picking on any retailers. So I just want to make sure I pointed that. They're working on that actually as we speak. So thank you so much, Jay. And with that, we'll do our last item before we go to break, which is going to be item number 6E, which is going to be by our newest enforcement manager, Shelby Nordman. She joined us from the Contractor State License Board, where she has quite a lot of enforcement experience, and I think she's pulling in the hours. She's getting up to speed. So with that, I'll turn it over to Shelby.
There we go. Thank you, Justin. Good morning. My name is Shelby Nordman, and I am the Staff Services Manager for the Compliance Unit here at the Bureau. I started this position on July 1st of 2022, and I would like to say that it is a pleasure to be working with such a fantastic team here. I will open with the enforcement overview. At the year end, the enforcement unit conducted a cleanup of open cases, resulting in an increase of case closures for December and a fresh start to the new year. During this quarter, the Enforcement Division has been successful in continuing to process and investigate complaints while hiring and training special investigators. Enforcement has hired 2 new special investigators, and there are several special investigators that are currently undergoing through the background check process. We hope to have them on board by the next advisory council. The compliance unit remains short-staffed, and we are in round 3 of the hiring process, with most candidates being disqualified for failing to submit viable applications. We will be conducting our second round of interviews later this week. This quarter, there was a drop in incoming household mover complaints because of the decrease in moves at this time of the year. All complaints are temporarily being immediately transferred to the field for investigation. As mentioned in our last Advisory Council report, there is an increase in the number of home furnishings and thermal insulation and electronic and appliance repair investigations being handled in the compliance unit who request field assistance as needed. In late August, the compliance unit converted over to a Teams phone system so that calls can be answered whether staff are teleworking or in the office, and to reduce the number of disruptions during emergencies. The new system has a general phone line that rings to the entire unit to better respond to customer inquiries. We have successfully implemented a triage process that is getting the complaints to the special investigators in a more efficient manner. The compliance unit has also developed a better system for processing lab failures and sending notifications to the businesses. January 23rd through the 27th, the Southern Investigations Unit will be traveling to headquarters in Sacramento to attend Bureau-wide trainings covering licensing, enforcement, and policy topics such as the applications process, the complaint handling process, jurisdiction, and code section trainings. Moving on to recoveries and hold hostage releases. I would like to draw your attention to the hold hostage chart at the bottom of page 39 of the meeting packet. As promised at our last Advisory Council, we have provided a chart showing the number of cases that, upon intake, fall into the definition of hold hostage cases, as well as the number of cases that were verified as true hold hostage situations, wherein the household goods are being held by the mover is demanding additional payment, and the demand is not permissible by law. Hold hostage cases are traumatic for consumers and receive high priority handling in enforcement.
Of the cases that were investigated and were not true hold hostage cases, the special investigators determined either that the deliveries were simply delayed, that the goods had been delivered without additional payments, or the consumer had requested a change order and the terms were being held until payment was made per the change order, but that items were delivered. Of the 4 hold hostage cases shown on the chart, all 4 movers were unlicensed, and 3 of the 4 businesses were located outside of California. Enforcement will continue to keep the council updated on hold hostage cases. Are there any questions on the hold hostage portion so far here in the room of council members? No, then about, how about any council members who are online?
So Shelby, well, first of all, this is Steve Whiteycamp, California Moving and Storage Association. We have yet to meet, and I welcome you. And my comments, just so you understand, generally for enforcement are supportive and complimentary. And the statistics that I'm seeing here in compliance unit investigated and conducted are very concerning to me, in that the zeros, the extreme amount of no activity as far as investigations conducted is a very disturbing number and reminiscent of a history that we had before we came to DCA. And so I find that extremely disconcerting when I look at compliance unit investigations conducted and see a whole series of zeros there. That is something that I find, completely unacceptable. So I need to have a better understanding of what that means.
Because of our being severely short-staffed in the compliance unit, almost all of the cases at this time are being transferred directly to the investigation center for immediate investigation. So they are being investigated, but they're being investigated by the investigations unit. So those numbers, they would be reflected in the field unit investigations conducted. So when we get better staffed, you'll see those numbers come back as we start handling investigations, desk investigations for HHM or for the household movers division in the compliance unit. Does that help clarify?
Not really. When I look at field unit investigations conducted, which is, you telling me that's where it's transferred, I don't have a chart for 20 and 19. And my hope, if what you're saying is at least is somewhat accurate, that those numbers would be dramatically smaller. And I'm not confident that that's the case. So I don't see evidence of good enforcement in household goods moving right now. And that really disturbs me, because that has been one of the main reasons for us being so supportive of this program. And I think that there needs to be a real regrouping and a decision to change whatever you guys have been doing. I don't get any sense from these statistics that it's adequate for the amount of revenue that we've been providing to the Bureau.
So Steve, I want to make sure I understand your comment. To restate in just a different way what Shelby said, essentially because the compliance unit is low on staff, it's a pass-through. There's an initial quick brief, and then it goes out to the field investigation unit. If it happened in Northern California, it goes north or south. Are you communicating that the quarters you're seeing on the page, which don't go back to when we got it, are you concerned with those and I just need to provide you past year's numbers, or are you concerned with the numbers you're seeing even on the page?
I'm concerned with the numbers I'm seeing on the page. I'd love to see past year's numbers, but I really don't understand why on page 38, compliance unit investigations conducted, it wouldn't even, that received, or there's no indication of this, that the field unit numbers have dramatically increased. I mean, it just is very confusing and disconcerting to me that these numbers seem to be getting smaller as we move along, not better. And I think that is problematic. I mean, it could, just the way it's presented, it doesn't bode well for enforcement against illegal actors. I don't even have a high degree of confidence that there was only 18 possible hold hostage shipments over the last quarter at this moment.
Understood. I'll make sure to speak with you as well as Sarah as we're prepping for our June meeting, and we'll make sure to plan to bring a more detailed report for you.
Thank you.
Justin, this is John Lucas. I was wondering if it's possible in the future, if these pass-throughs continue at the same rate, that you might not want to include that in the statistics. So instead of showing 0, you could say, I'm not sure how many that were passed on in the last 2 quarters, but that would give some idea of what's going on.
I think I hear what you're saying, Don, but I want to make sure. I think what I would do is I would add a footnote if I had to do it over again as we speak in the items you're seeing. But the advisory council really is here to give me comments just like Steve gave me. And so I'm worried I'd be hiding the ball if I changed that. But maybe I'm misunderstanding your comment.
No, it just, like I said, seeing zeros, it obviously is a concern. And it sounds like they're not being ignored, but they're being passed on. And there's no indication of that. Although when you look at the Special Investigations Unit on the quarter ending 6/30/22, for instance, the number went from the previous quarter from 103 received to 211. So there's an indication that something changed there in a fairly significant way.
Got it. Ann, would you mind advancing the slide just to the field there we go. Again, I'd have to get into the specifics. Again, when it comes to the pass-through, I think what I'll do, Don, if you're comfortable with it, is I'll do a footnote if we continue that procedure. My hope is Shelby is actually in interviews later this week. So my hope is by the time we're walking into spring, she's fully staffed, and essentially she doesn't have to do an automatic referral like she does now for household movers. But again, we can certainly update you, and I'll also make sure, Steve, I'm giving you the level of detail you want for the June meeting.
And do we have any public comments or questions?
And we're opening up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If you have a comment on these enforcement stats, you can look for the question mark icon in the lower right of your WebEx screen. Click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. And the other option for anyone is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Now for our proactive enforcement operations update. On November 9th and 10th, the Bureau conducted its second proactive sting operation led by Supervising Special Investigator Rick Bellucci and assisted by Supervising Special Investigator Nicole Bowles. The sting operation was successful in promoting Bureau partnerships with the Yolo, Yuba, and Sutter County District Attorney's offices and the Yuba County Sheriff's Department. The sting efforts were concentrated in Yuba County to focus on workers' compensation violations and unlicensed household mover businesses with a large presence in California. Detailed planning of this sting included setting up appointments with 20 businesses that were found by the Bureau to be illegally transporting household goods over California highways without a permit. The sting resulted in 12 cases referred to the Yolo County DA's Office for Prosecution, 1 administrative citation, and 1 case is still under investigation. We are continuing to work out the details for the 3rd sting operation, and we look forward to sharing the results at the next advisory council. Dale Chase and Teresa Beza have conducted delinquent licensing sweeps for large chain retail businesses who had failed to pay their licensing renewal fees. Some of these compliance checks resulted in license cancellations, updated contact information, and payment of license renewals. This concludes the enforcement operations report. Do any council members in the room have any questions or comments? Okay, then would any of the council members online have any questions or comments?
Yes, Steve Whiteycamp, California Moving and Storage Association. Regarding the information you just provided us related to the stings, it is not part of the packet I have. It would be possible to get a written brief related to that information with the counties, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's not a problem, Steve. Would the council in general like that, or should I devote that to? Okay, absolutely, okay.
It'll probably be part of the minutes too, right?
I think that also moving forward, now that, I don't know, I can't think of a good metaphor. Now that we're sort of moving through it now, I think what you'll see is just an updated table that we could just include in the statistics, but we'll put our heads together. But no matter what, we'll send you a summary of this, Steve. I'll send it to the whole council. But you'll probably see it as like essentially a new stats table moving forward.
Hopefully we'll see it in press releases moving forward.
Yes, you will, Steve. I think as I mentioned in the last meeting, once I get this deputy, which hopefully you're going to see an email from me in less than a week. It's a little bit up in the air, but we're finalizing that candidate, as Kelly mentioned, and I'm putting outreach all on them. So we're going to be stepping up, as well as the May moving month. Steve will be in touch with you there.
And is there any public questions or comments?
We have opened up the Q&A to facilitate public comment. If there's any comment on the sting operations update, you can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand to be recognized. And if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. And I do not see any requests for comment. I can close that Q&A.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Shelby. With that, we will take a brief break. Dawn, I'm gonna take a minute away from you, but I would say if everyone could come back, I'm seeing 12:16 on my clock right now. If everyone can plan to just return about 12:30, just to make it a nice even number. So we will just stand in recess temporarily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, for those online, we're going to get started. We're just gathering at the moment. I'll start in about 1 more minute. All right, so it's 12:32, and we'll bring the meeting back to order. With that, we are moving on to agenda item number 7, and I'm going to hand it over to Yafana Lamar.
Hi, good afternoon now. Thank you all for still being here, and it's nice to see you guys in person finally as I make my way out. I'm going to start with legislative policy updates from the policy unit. Since the last meeting, the policy unit published an industry advisory to notify household movers and industry in general that AB 2956, authored by the Assembly Committee on Transportation, recognizes the transfer of administration of household movers from the PUC to BHUGs. That advisory is on page 41 of your meeting materials. That's on our website, and we met with the CHP about it. Justin will go into that in more detail later. The policy unit also published the updated tariff, which sets maximum rates for household movers and that is effective January 1st. So any move occurring on or after January 1st, 2023, movers can use those new rates, which reflect changes in inflation. We also published a new electronic and appliance repair law book. The updates there reflect amendments made by AB 1443 by Assemblymember Ross to extend the date by a year of the sections that were going to be repealed January 1st. It's just extended by 1 year to accommodate our sunset review delay. Both documents are posted to the website, and links were provided in the meeting materials on page 42. Finally, the policy unit finished, submitted, and published the Bureau's sunset review report. I'll discuss this in agenda item 7C. Any questions from advisory council members on just the update? I see none in the room. Anybody online? Okay. Anne, can I wait for public comments until after?
Certainly.
See. Okay. Okay, so no comments or questions. I'll move to the first agenda item, which is the household mover enforcement regulation update. The enforcement regulations proposal is still under review at DCA Legal, but we hear it's getting close to being approved. We're hoping to notice the proposed regulation in the spring. So the majority of the work has been done. When you submit a regulations proposal, it has to include the proposed text, initial statement of reasons, an economic impact statement, and the notice. We're waiting on approval of the proposed text, and then all those other documents are done. So we would just need to make adjustments depending on what legal approves, if they make any changes to our proposed text. So we hope to notice that in the spring. Notice includes posting to the website, and we post for 45 days to allow the public to comment, and if we receive any comments, then we would respond to those in our final statement of reasons. Okay, now any questions on the household mover enforcement regulations proposal from advisory council members in the room? None? Any questions from online? Okay, Anne, can you open it up for public comments or questions?
Lana, Steve
Certainly.
Camp here. I just wanted to thank you and the Bureau for putting out that notice. And first of all, for hearing us on this issue and playing a huge part in making this happen, and then ensuring that all parties understand the modification in the regs.
Well, thank you, Steve.
And yes, we have opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on the first item that Fauna has presented, you may look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment into that text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand to comment. And if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. Each commenter will be given 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. And I do not see any requests for comment at this time. Shall I go ahead and close that out?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, I'll move to agenda item 7B. That's the household movers licensing regulation update. We held a household mover regulations workshop on December 8th, 2022 in Norwalk, California. We held it in Southern California to keep a promise to industry to have our next workshop closer to them. The overarching theme of the workshop was that the Bureau is not interested in pursuing exemptions from obtaining a permit. It's mostly about trying to reduce barriers to get certain business types compliant. So industry representatives gave significant insight into circumstances in which the perceived barriers are appropriate because they serve a consumer protection value. So we appreciated everybody who came, everyone who participated. Writing this rulemaking will begin after the Bureau's household mover enforcement regulations are adopted and after the disciplinary guidelines for all 3 practice acts are updated. The disciplinary guidelines are discussed on page 78 of the Sunset Report as an issue that the legislature was interested in the last time we went through Sunset Review. So that moves it up in priority. The licensing, our ability to license permit holders is there. We don't need a lot of framework for that, so we can operate within our existing authority under the Household Mover Act. The Bureau will likely hold another licensing workshop later in the year, which will be online or hybrid to allow a larger participation. That presentation should have more information for the attendees. The first meeting was a kickoff meeting for us to solicit information from industry. So that was us gathering information, and the next meeting should be more of us giving information. Are there any questions about the household mover licensing reg workshop? None in the room? Online advisory council members?
Just that we appreciate that and found it worthwhile to get together and to share ideas. So thank you again for that.
Yeah, thank you for coming and bringing your folks. Oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot to open for public comment. And can you open it up, please?
Absolutely. We're opening up the Q&A for WebEx to facilitate public comment. If you have a comment on that latest portion of the report, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment into the text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand to ask to be recognized. And if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for public comment. I can go ahead and close that for now.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, I'll move to agenda item 7C, update on the Bureau Sunset Report. Before I get into the my talking points, I wanted to point out at the bottom of page 42 of the Sunset Report are the investigation numbers for the previous years. Those aren't broken out by Practice Act, but we have those spreadsheets done. So Steve, if you would like to see those numbers for the past years, we could easily send that to you. Okay. So the Sunset Report was submitted to the legislature in late December and distributed to the advisory council members the same day. The report is posted to the website, and a link to that report is provided on page 44. Based on this report, the Business and Professions Committees of the legislature will interview Chief Paddock about Bureau activities and the report. They will prepare a background paper identifying issues to which the Bureau must respond, and Chief Paddock will then appear at a hearing of the Joint Sunset Review Committees to provide testimony on those issues. We were preparing for a February hearing, which is why this meeting was scheduled for January, but we are now hearing that we should be prepared for hearing in March. A date hasn't been set, that's just, you know. The part of the report where we ask the legislature to consider statutory changes is in the new issues. This section is where the Bureau identifies its high priority policy issues that we are asking the legislature to solve. So issues that could be solved in another manner, such as the percentages on labels, we did not include those in the report because we are within our authority to solve that through regulation, and Diana will talk about the regs. Those were already submitted, so that may be a faster route. So we didn't include that. I just wanted you to know we didn't forget for it. Okay. All right. So I wanted to talk about each of the issues in case advisory council members have questions. Those start on page 90 of the Sunset Report. So the first one is fund consolidation and limited fee increases. The Bureau contracted with CPSHR to conduct a fee study, which Justin will cover on the next agenda item. Key findings of the report that made it into the Sunset Report are the need for fund consolidation, and Justin will cover that in more detail as well. Other recommendations are to increase fees for certain EAR and Hefty license types to reflect the amount of work required to process those license applications. Another ask is that we would like to move Hefty license types to an annual renewal cycle. It's just easier for our licensees to keep track of. And it's easier to pay on an annual basis. So the proposed fees are in a table on page 92 of the report. And I wanted to add for Bert, because we're hoping to move to an annual renewal period, we prioritized Hefty licenses as the last for business modernization. So after the household movers gets on, then it'll be the EAR license types. And then hopefully after those releases, we'll know more about if the legislature is willing to accept our proposal to move to annual. So we just wanted to eliminate rework by the developers. Okay, based on workload, the study recommends increasing HHM fees as well, but it's too early to tell if the workload associated with administering the Household Mover Act is due to implementing a new program or if this is the status quo. Additionally, workload may be impacted by business modernization. So considering the health of the fund and these factors, the Bureau cannot justify raising fees for household movers. But the Bureau will look at workload again in a couple years, which Justin will talk about. And after, I'll ask for public comment after the end of this agenda item, but I want to ask advisory council members after each issue if they have questions, because they're all so different. So anything on this?
That's fine.
Anybody in the room?
Yeah, I think, Tom Keepers, I hope I'm on the right one. There's a change in the service contract administrator fees. Should I defer to the update on the CPS fee study to ask about that, or should I wait for the study to come out?
I can touch on it right now. Essentially, what I would say is, and Tom, this probably doesn't surprise you, there's quite a lot of work when it comes to reviewing service contracts that just wasn't being encapsulated in the current fee structure. So that's hands down the most significant increase that's being proposed. Again, I'll be curious to sort of see comments when we actually go through the sunset review process here in a couple months. Just by way of background, you as a representative of your industry are also more than welcome to attend that hearing. And I'll make sure once that hearing is scheduled that the council knows this. But for any item that comes up, you're more than welcome to go testify on behalf of your industry or as your role at the council, either way. And I'm happy to assist you with that testimony. But based on the workload that we were seeing from what I would call the CPS draft report at this point, that's the most significant increase. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that when we're looking at a service contract, that's pretty extensive legal review. It does take time. There can be a back and forth, especially when some of these contracts are in the teens as far as pages long. And that's why you're seeing a significant change on that particular instance. Not the sellers, not the other parts of the industry, but the administrators are pretty workload heavy.
Yeah, and we have a similar, there's some challenges in other areas, right? Like our friends down the street, auto enforcement on the vehicle side. I guess my question was, and this comes from ignorance, is this a new effort that, and so therefore new information about how much time it takes, or is it just a realization of some kind? And it's not higher volume, right?
I think it's a little bit of both. I would say anecdotally, I've had 2 stints as chief of this bureau. Anecdotally, I'm certainly doing a lot more this time around as far as contract reviews than I was doing the first time around. So I do feel that there has been an increase. But just to give you some background on the CPS report, and sorry everyone, we're going a little bit out of order, but I think it's just helpful to answer the question now. What exactly was conducted is a review of, okay, where was staff spending their time? And having that sort of, those outside eyes take a look at us and see kind of where we were spending our time, and interviewing and surveying staff throughout the Bureau, we saw, oh, wow, that's a significant workload amount. I think I could have told you that if you asked me, if you wanted to go back to January me, I could tell you that this was going to be in the report findings, just having the background that I had. But basically it was just a realization with actual survey results.
Yes, so the nature of the work didn't change then?
Correct.
Okay,
the nature of the work.
That's a key.
I wouldn't say that.
With the legislative change, I'll say in a minute.
The reason I ask is I'm curious about, there's frequency and then there's severity or depth. So if the depth of the reviews are just kind of generally the same, then it doesn't surprise me. However, if there was a philosophical or strategic change where it's like, hey, we need to cross every T and dot every I and change our reviews so that we're being more thorough, that would be a different situation.
So there's both.
Okay.
Our last sunset bill extended our scope to all consumer goods. Before that, it was an inclusive list of products for which service contracts were offered. Then it expanded to all consumer goods, so that increased the frequency. And then last year, AB 1221 increased the complexity because now that changed where there had to be a set start and end date or a set time frame. And now they could go month to month. There has to be consumer disclosures, there has to be consumer buy-in, and there are a lot more requirements that a service contract has to make if it wants to operate under those new requirements.
Thank you.
Okay.
And again, I agree with Fauna. I think no matter what, if you didn't see legislative changes, you would have seen an increase in this after we actually saw the numbers of how much time we were spending. But with the legislative changes, there is an increase in the amount of the workload that we've seen historically.
No, that's helpful. I can appreciate the effort it takes to review a consumer contract in this area. So it's helpful to understand this background.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, even before those changes, the fee was not commensurate with the amount of work that had to be done.
On the program and license types, we don't have manufacturers down here under the HIFTY. So we're no longer required to have a license.
No, you're required to have a license. I think we didn't
Where?
put you.
Where?
We didn't put you in here because we weren't making an augmentation. I'm trying to go from memory, but I'm 99% certain, Bert, because we were proposing a change, we just didn't put you on the list. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions from advisory council members online?
Yes, thank you. Steve Whitecamp, California Moving and Storage Association. I'm going to need more before I have comfort in supporting the consolidation of the funds. And I propose that we have a separate meeting and any council members or that would want to be there at the BHUG's offices, and then have financial staff and others present to explain to us how it would be done, how it would be verified, what the potential issues and benefits of consolidating the three funds are.
Justin is going to cover that in agenda item 7D. So as soon as I get through the sunset reports, then Justin will hopefully answer your questions.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'll move on to issue 2, statewide withhold from sale. This starts on page 93 and it impacts Hufty. A legal opinion by DCA stated that the Language and Business and Professions Code 19202, which authorizes the Bureau to withhold products from sale if it violates the act, that it requires each individual item to be found in violation. So if a piece of upholstered furniture fails flammability requirements, well, it's only that one. We can't take those products off the market. They found that this did not respect due process rights. So this proposal would try to rectify that. So the proposed solution would be to allow manufacturers and retailers to comply immediately. That would be their choice, or they could wait until after the appeal process is completed and a ruling is made, and then they would have to go back and get those products from the consumers, offer a refund for free, meaning they would pay for the pickup and delivery and all that stuff. So that would all be up to the industry representative who was cited. And that it could also hold accountable all in the chain of supply. So if we got the furniture from a retailer, they would return it to the manufacturer would have to refund the retailer. So, we're trying to make it more fair while also balancing consumer protection, because our goal is to remove harmful products from the marketplace, right? So this was actually raised by consultants from the legislature during the last sunset review. They came to the Bureau and did a lab tour. So this is in response to some questions that they had. Are there any questions about this issue?
So in other words, if an inspector goes into the store and finds an ottoman that's not mislabeled, but it's got, maybe chemicals in the foam, you can pull that ottoman and not the rest. You cannot red tag the rest to be stopped. and then the store could sell those legally, and the consumer could have that chemical ottoman in their house and never want to return it because it's too much of a hassle.
Correct.
That doesn't sound very good.
Right. Well, that's why we're trying to fix it. And we hope the legislature is still interested enough to do so. Are there any questions from advisory council members online? Okay, I'll move to issue number 3. This one starts on page 94. Bureau investigations have found a large percentage of household mover complaints are about moving companies that are located out of state. These companies are typically unpermitted, and the Public Utilities Code from which the Household Mover Act came contains an act within that code. It's called the Interstate and Foreign Motor Carriers of Household Goods and Passengers Act that allows for a registration process of out-of-state movers that excludes the exam. When the Bureau began enforcing permit requirements against interstate movers, it revealed the issue of how do they come take a test. So then we started to offer computerized testing, and there's locations nationwide, but then interstate moves are not subject to the tariff, and that's what the exam is on. So why should they have to take an exam on something that their contracts are not subject to? So this proposal would essentially enact a similar system that was in the Public Utilities Code, just to make it easier for interstate movers to comply. So if they're based out of New York, they shouldn't have to fly to California to take an exam on something they'll never use, or fly to Florida, wherever our testing location is. Are there any questions from anybody in the room? Council members? No? Online?
Yeah, there's some questions. So this is only specific to interstate transportation, correct?
Correct. If they're based in New York, but they do a origin and destination that's in California, that move would be subject to the tariff, and they would need to take the exam.
100% correct. So, but if they are doing interstate transportation, you will rely on their FMCSA licensure to determine whether they're at. Okay, go ahead. What's different?
Well, it depends on if the legislature takes this up and what form they're willing to take. Right now, in the Public Utilities Code, if they have a license in their home state, or a permit, household mover permit in their home state, then they would submit evidence of that and evidence of insurance and everything else that a household mover based in California would need to, other than the residency requirement.
And what about for the more than dozen or so states that have absolutely no regulation?
They would not be eligible, according, if they go with the example that's in the Public Utilities Code right now. You have to have a permit issued by your home state to be eligible for that.
We would support your position on that with the one clear caveat that it would not be a position of reciprocity for state licensure to use their home state license for a California regulated job.
That's not what we're proposing. But then again, you know, how the legislature takes this, that's up to them. But yeah, if they go with what we're proposing a system similar to that act in the Public Utilities Code.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Issue number 4, licensing limited liability companies. This is on page 95 of the Sunset Report. Historically, the Corporations Code required LLCs that offer professional services to also require a license under the Business and Professions Code to meet certain criteria to be issued a license. Among those are insurance requirements. Because the business licenses retail services and products, our acts were considered not subject to these requirements because they weren't professional services. The Corporations Code was amended in 2014 to require any program with authority in the Business and Professions Code to specifically authorize its licensees to form as LLCs, and it does not make that professional services clarification. So that means that we need to have that added to each of our practice acts. We do not want to disrupt our current licensees' business organization, so we hope, that this would be a grandfathering type issue, but, again, we can't ask for everything. We just have to point out the problem that needs to be fixed and hope that we can come to a resolution. Are there any questions about this issue? No? None in the room? Any online?
We're supportive of that. We definitely don't want a situation that either discriminates or disrupts the current group of permit carriers.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, I'll move on to issue 5. This is authority to auto-suspend household mover permits for lapse in insurance. This is on page 96. So the Household Mover Act authorizes the Bureau to suspend a household mover permit by operation of law for failing to keep up workers' comp insurance. However, that authority is not specified for cargo and liability insurance. So without that specificity, we are beholden to follow the process in the government code, which requires us to file with the Attorney General's office. This is a process that could take a year or more. By then, people will likely have their insurance up to date. So we just would like to have that suspension be immediate to get the permit holders' attention so that they can resolve that before their permit gets revoked. Is there any questions in the room? Are there none in the room? Are there any questions online?
I think this is an item that we discussed in our licensing regulation meeting, and if you have a protocol similar to, or suggest a protocol similar to what the Contractor State License Board utilizes, we don't have any reason to object.
Okay. Yeah, it's usually easier to follow a model that has worked. So, I'm sure that would be a consideration. Okay, so I'll move to issue 6. This is on page 97, remove household mover financial requirements. So the Household Mover Act requires applicants to establish financial responsibility to operate as a mover. The PUC interpreted financial responsibility to mean that they can require extensive financial documents of applicants for a permit. However, the Bureau has found this bank information is not valuable to the Bureau in issuing a permit. Insurance coverage is a better indicator of a mover's ability to cover any harm that's done to a consumer, any financial harm. So the Bureau is requesting a change in statute to eliminate the financial information requirements. We can't do that on our own because Business and Professions Code section 19228 requires the Bureau to follow the rules and regulations of the PUC. So until we adopt regulations, we have to follow the process that the PUC did. We feel like legislation is the more appropriate venue for this change, however, because there is no guidance on what the legislature meant by financial responsibility. If they really meant for applicants to submit all their bank information, or if they just wanted to make sure that consumers were covered in case of financial injury. So we would like the legislature to clarify that for us. Are there any questions from council in the room? Any online?
We 100% agree with you and support that change, and would be shocked to find that the PUC did any of that within the last 15 years.
Okay. Yeah, that was the system they taught to our licensing folks when the Bureau was implementing that, the Household Mover Act. So we've been advised to keep following that. Okay, issue 7. This is to standardize ear and Hefty license expirations. This is on page 97. The Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation Act provides that a license expires after 6 years. So if a business closes and but they don't cancel their license with us, they accumulate delinquency fees, and they still have license fees that accumulate, but those end after 6 years. For electronic and appliance repair, there is no end date. So we've had people who've been cited and they had ear registration that from 9 years ago, and we don't have authority to just waive those. They have to pay all the delinquency fees, penalty fees, and past license fees. So it could be thousands of dollars to come into compliance. So we just want to standardize that across across ear and Hefty to allow people to comply more easily. Are there any questions? No? Any online? All right, we're getting towards the end. Issue 8, fingerprinting for service dealers and household movers. This starts on page 98. Household movers already are required to submit fingerprints to the Department of Justice, who conducts a background check to check for convictions to ensure the Bureau does not issue a permit to a person who may pose a threat to consumers. The Bureau also receives subsequent arrest records for permit holders. So if they're arrested after they're issued a permit by the Bureau, we get those arrest records. However, the authority under the Household Mover Act only authorizes the Bureau to receive subsequent arrest records for those who applied with the Bureau. So any long-standing permit holder who originally obtained their permit from the PUC were not authorized to receive those subsequent arrest records. So we're hoping that gets changed. Additionally, service dealers under electronic and appliance repair frequently enter consumer homes, and they're not required to get fingerprinted. And if they're fixing electronics, they potentially have access to pictures, financial information, passwords, other personal data, but they're not required to undergo a background. So we're asking the legislature to consider fingerprints for ear. Are there any questions about this issue? None? Any online?
I have a question about the broader issue of what constitutes a violation that would either prevent you from getting a permit or get one revoked. I don't know that we've ever had clarity on what those violations are, and I think that it would be helpful even for people. I had someone as late as yesterday call me wanting to know if it was worth their trouble to go through the application process. I told them it probably was based upon what history they shared with me. I said the #1 disqualifier would be not to disclose and to have it come up after the fact, which would probably be grounds for immediate cancellation. But other than that, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. There's substantially related criteria in the Household Mover Act. I can send you the code section. I don't have that one off the top of my head. But we also included that in our enforcement regulations package. So when that is adopted, that will be in the first batch of household mover regulations.
Thank you.
And what I would say, Steve, also is this is something, I had quite a lot of these conversations with the Contractor State License Board. I've just had a few here at the Bureau. I can't promise an applicant the outcome, but I've had plenty of conversations with applicants who I think were needlessly, had high anxiety over applying when they shouldn't. But it really is a conversation I need to have on a case-by-case basis. And I start the conversation by saying, I'm not promising you an outcome, but let's talk about your circumstances, and I'll sort of tell you how the process will lay out. And a lot of individuals really were set at ease. So a classic example of this that I'll just say is DUI. The conversations that I've had really with many contractors, I haven't had the conversations here yet, but I'm happy to. The conversations with those contractors were around what the DUI was and what it was for. Again, I'm not trying to place moral judgments on things. If this is something where an individual was leaving at 2 a.m., not in their work truck, that's not my business. If this was an issue where they were showing up to a client's house and conducting contracting during the day intoxicated and then drove their work truck home, that's a different conversation. But it's really case by case, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have a question, Toby Taylor, Industry. What's the look-back period on the criminal history?
It depends on what the criminal conviction is. So for the most part, if you're talking about most felonies, really we stop looking 7 years back. Okay. There's a couple of exceptions to that, which basically I simplify by saying, you know, really violent felony, something that's sexually related, or certain, and I really need to underline that, certain financial crimes that really substantially relate to the industry. With those exceptions, you're looking at 7 years back. Thank you. And then misdemeanors, I always forget, is it 4?
No, it's 7.
Oh, for misdemeanors as well? Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry.
But for where there is no 7-year look back where we could go back, it's in the penal code, there's a list of crimes. I can send those to you if you want.
That's fine, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to issue number 9. Aaron Hefty, outdated terminology, and this starts on page 99 of the Sunset Report. This was brought up by more than one advisory council member as well as staff. The EAR law and Hefty Act contain terminology that has not been updated for decades. This issue brings attention to the need for updated terminology to reflect technology and terminology used by industry. And these changes will promote a better understanding for the public and Bureau staff as well of the Bureau's scope. So we often get calls about, I fixed these, do I need a EAR registration? So hopefully we can get these into statute so we get fewer of those calls and people understand when they need to come into compliance with Bureau registration, licensing, or permit laws. Any questions on this one? So, online? All right, last issue. Issue number 10, starting on page 100. It's a flame retardant chemical document requirements. The Hefty Act requires upholstery furniture manufacturers to maintain documentation to show at which point flame retardant chemicals were added. Between difficulty in obtaining this information, especially if the manufacturer doesn't have a relationship with the supplier where that's possible, that could be very difficult to get. Also, the Bureau lacks enforcement, the ability to take enforcement action. The Bureau has authority, but many suppliers are not in the United States. So how do you issue a citation to them? So rather than hold the manufacturer accountable for a violation by the supplier, the Bureau is proposing that this requirement come out altogether. We have not seen many flame retardant chemical content violations I mean, I think it's been one or two in the past, like, since SB 1019 was enacted. So we don't see the need for this anymore, so we would like to remove that requirement of manufacturers. Are there any questions from the room? Any online? Okay, I get a break from talking. Back to Justin for, oh, I'm sorry, are there any public comments, Ann?
And we're opening up the WebEx Q&A feature to allow for public comments. If there are any comments on the Sunset Report or any of the issues brought up, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Click that, and in the text box type comment and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand.
Anna, is this officially your last meeting with us?
It is.
Thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I do not see any requests for public comment, so I'll go ahead and close that.
Okay. And before I pass it back to Justin, I also should check with advisory council members if you have questions on any other part of the report. You're not limited to questions on what I presented. You can bring up anything that's in there. If they come up later in the meeting, that's fine too, or if you have questions afterwards, please let us know.
Yeah, I might be kind of late on this, but when you talk about the different materials that we use, and it hasn't been reviewed since 1970, do we have a process that we come up with new materials being used, we can add it quickly?
So the good news is, Bert, when it comes to Hufty, you're gonna, and we've actually discussed it, you're gonna see that in the reg that we've already written. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know a lot of terms that you need to update in the Hufty Act. I can quickly glance at it, but I don't think there's a lot. What you really need to update in Hufty is the regs, which we're doing. On the EAR side, which is the proposal Fauna was discussing, there's a lot of definitions essentially in legislation. For example, long before Steve Jobs gave us our smartphones. So that's essentially what we're looking to update is those statutes. I can do a quick run through, but I don't recall that being an issue with Hufty. Yeah. Do you see anything, Fauna?
Yeah, it's in the Sunset Report.
Like one term?
Says many common components used as filling materials are not currently defined, such as polyurethane foam.
And essentially, we'll be happy to have conversations with the legislature, but through the work we did with you and Pascal, we've already got good working definitions in the reg. Yeah.
What if they had something new comes in the future?
For the most part, you could do the reg, but I think what I'll say is it'll be a case-by-case basis. Yeah, I'll be curious. I think we'll do it a case-by-case. Yeah.
Sorry, now Justin's going to cover the CPS view study.
Thank you, Fauna. So this is just agenda item 7D. So with regard to the CPS fee study, we essentially did our new issues proposal based on the draft CPS HR fee report. We're essentially in the coming weeks finalizing that report. And we'll submit it to the legislature. The moment I submit it to the legislature, I'll send an email to all advisory council meetings so you have a copy of that report, and then we'll put it on the website. Essentially, it just constitutes an additional appendix to the Sunset Review report. As I briefly spoke about earlier, essentially what was really done here was a workload report. Staff was surveyed. We looked into where individuals were spending their time. I think the things I would note on top of, we already talked about service contract administrators. It's why we looked to increase fees in certain areas of our various industries, and why we're really not touching others. Essentially what we saw is how much time we were spending on a particular issue, and we wanted to make sure, in addition to that, the fund condition was healthy. So for example, EAR, you see in the long term is in a decline, so you're seeing a lot more of the EAR increases than you're seeing increases elsewhere. With that, the only other thing I would say is after we finalize the report, we'll essentially have ongoing conversations with the legislature and with you about fund consolidation. I think the critical thing here for the Bureau is it's exceedingly difficult on a day-to-day basis to break out how much time a special investigator spends at an EAR location, how many miles he's putting on the car, and then going to do a Hufty stop and how many miles she's putting on the car. That's incredibly tricky to do well. Also, just as a reference, my position, for example, is coming out of Hufty fees. And I can tell you, a lot of my time is spent on implementation of household movers at the moment because there's just a lot of work there. I think ongoing, any entity that's essentially asking for a fund consolidation needs to periodically look at how much time it's spending in the various areas, and some level of audit needs to be conducted on that. And I'm happy, that's essentially the conversation I plan to have through the sunset review process, is essentially we would be happy to do some sort of report periodically before sunsets to make sure we sort of have everything balanced as we should, and we're happy to have some sort of critical review. I think by virtue of being within the Department of Consumer Affairs, we can actually rely on a lot of DCA offices to help us with that and make sure that we're doing that right. And you're getting sort of an outside scrutiny to our work. With that, I'll open it up to questions. Any questions from council in the room?
No, I just wanted to comment on Fana's promotion, and thank you for everything that you have done for us along the way. You were always there answering the call or responding to the call. So we really, really I appreciate everything that you did for the council and for the Bureau. And
Thank you.
Good luck on the next chapter of your career.
And Pascal, you're getting a little ahead of me.
Am I?
Actually, on agenda item 9, we are all going to get sappy.
Oh, I'm
yeah. And Fana's just going to have to sit here and listen to it.
Sorry, I did get ahead. I thought I was looking at the first page. My apologies.
That's why he's making me sit here.
And also, I have a plane to catch, so in case I didn't get to number 9.
But thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Pascal. You've definitely been awesome to work with and for.
Any council member comment online?
To be continued.
Understood, Steve. Once that CPS report is published, I think I'm happy to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty, and we can certainly do that. Ann, would you mind opening it up to public comment?
Certainly, and we're opening up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment on the items that Justin has covered. If anyone would like to make a comment, you may look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen, and type the word comment into the text box that appears and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and that may be behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. And our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
With that, I will turn it over to Diana Godinez in our policy shop to give us an update on agenda item 7E.
Good morning. I am Diana Godinez, the policy manager for the Bureau. I am here to provide an update on the law label regulatory proposal 7E. The Bureau provided the proposed language during the June 2022 Advisory Council meeting to seek stakeholder input. The proposed text now move forward for legal review to begin the rulemaking process. During this period, we will continue to accept any input while we are still in the informal stage. Legal review takes approximately 30 days depending on the complexity of the proposal. Once the review is complete and the rulemaking package is finalized, it will move forward to the Office of Administrative Law for publishing. We are hoping to have it filed by late spring of this year. I would like to thank Bert and Pascal for all the contributions that you've made during this process and to everyone that has provided input on the proposed text. Is there any questions? Thank you. Any questions online? And any public comment?
And this is the moderator. We're opening the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If anyone has any comment on the policy report, you can let us know by looking for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. And there are no requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Yvonne Lamar is going to provide an update on our last item 7F.
This one will go much faster. This is an update on the policy unit strategic plan. So I'll just cover each objective. The first is to adopt regulations to clarify law label requirements and remove outdated language to increase compliance. Diana just gave that update. Objective 2, adopt regulations to enable comprehensive enforcement actions for violations of the Household Mover Act. I addressed this by agenda item 7A. Objective 3, analyze ignition interlock device legislation and regulations to elevate the Bureau's role in regulating the industry. This is becoming a long-term goal. Chief Paddock will continue working with our advisory council members, Toby Taylor and Dan Rhodes, as well as industry to determine the best course of action for this objective. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, Toby, thank you for having a brief conversation with me before the meeting. I think we're going to sort of discuss some public comment you could give at the legislative sunset hearing itself. And then also, I think Toby will have a few more comments for us as well when we get to future agenda items, which is agenda item number 11. Thanks, Bona.
Okay, objective 4 is update Bureau regulations and statutes to reflect the evolving gig economy, as well as explore and identify participants in the gig economy. This is a long-term policy goal that will be addressed in upcoming years. This will be an after sunset project for the policy unit. And the last objective is to update and simplify electronic and appliance repair dealer registration law to address current and emerging technologies, eliminate obsolete references, assist enforcement, align with current business practices, address privacy and information security issues, and enhance compliance. This was addressed in the Sunset Report as new issue number 9. Are there any questions about the policy unit's strategic plan objectives? None from the room? Any online?
I would just strongly suggest that when looking at, catchphrases and things like gig economy or industry disruptors, that always be taken into consideration that you know, what the basis of regulations are, and that those entities, while they may have new and fancy names, when there was businesses in California in the moving business, when we used to have horses, and if, you know, changing that to gas-powered vehicles and diesel vehicles was the determination of whether they needed to be regulated or not, I think, you know, we'd have a much different environment.
All right, thank you, Steve. All right, are there any other comments from advisory council members online? Any public comment?
And we're opening the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If anyone has anything to say about the presentation, you can look for the question mark icon in the lower right of your WebEx screen or behind the three other options. Type the word comment and click send, or anyone may raise their hand to ask to be recognized by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature? You're
yes,
welcome.
please. Thank you, Ann.
You bet.
And that's it for number 7. So back to Chief Paddock.
Well, thank you, Fauna. Moving on to agenda item number 8. This is just a brief update. Fauna and I actually were able to meet with the California Highway Patrol recently, and the meeting went really well. We discussed the industry advisory before the meeting. Actually, they reviewed it before we actually released it. We certainly appreciated their feedback on that document. They really had no concerns as well from that document. And then in addition to that, we really met on whether or not the Bureau could utilize, I can't believe I said utilize, use weigh stations throughout the state of California to essentially conduct household mover compliance inspections, because you know, any heavily weighted truck has to go through these scales, and it seems like a good opportunity because law enforcement is already on site, so there's less of a safety concern than essentially sort of a sting operation where someone is actually coming to either a storage space or a home of some sort. The initial conversations were great. They're actually very excited about it. We're working on what's called a memorandum of understanding as we speak. Once we finalize that memorandum of understanding with the CHP, there'll be a little back and forth, obviously. But once we've hammered that out, what will happen is we're going to try to do about somewhere between 2 to 3 of these in 2023, and essentially do an assessment of how it went. Was this successful? Were we just standing around twiddling our thumbs and we had a total of 3 come in for the whole day? And then based on that, we'll reassess for 2024. So overall, very productive meeting. We were able to speak with quite a few individuals throughout the CHP chain of command here in Sacramento, and we're just very appreciative that they're excited about this with us. With that, any questions from the council in the room? Any questions from council online?
Thank you.
Steve, was that for me or?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I know I'm mic'd up.
You're welcome, Steve. All right, with that, I'll open it to public comment. Ann, would you mind opening it to?
And we've opened up the WebEx Q&A. If anyone would like to comment on the update with the CHP collaboration, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, which might be behind the 3 other options if you're on a mobile device. And our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand to ask to be recognized. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. And I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 9. Obviously, Yafana's favorite item for the day. Again, Yafana is very much similar to myself in that she doesn't take compliments well. So I will do my best to be brief, and then I'll open it up to the council for any comments they'd like to make in addition. I've known Fauna for over a decade. I've had the privilege of working with her in 2 different offices. And I would say the most interesting thing is I've also been a client of hers. She has always provided brilliant service, whether or not it was when we were colleagues, when I was her employer, and especially when I was a client. I always felt heard. And I would say in this business, I think that that is huge. I can tell you I have never found a more diligent worker. I think she's a brilliant writer. And above all, the best compliment I can give anyone in this business, she is hands down a phenomenal public servant. So with that, I think she steered the Bureau through many difficult years recently, especially with a lot of leadership changes. And I really thank her. And the Bureau and myself, we have a huge debt. So thank you very much, Fauna. All right, with that, I will open it up to council members in the room.
Okay, Fauna, first of all, sorry we're losing such a dedicated, staff member. A couple times I've even received emails late at night from you, so I know you're working. We're going to miss your wonderful, we're going to miss your wonderful smile, and good luck in your new position.
Thank you, Bert.
I will reiterate what I said earlier. And thank you, Chief Paddock, because you reminded me that she was acting chief for a while. So I'll blame it on COVID, but thank you.
Thank you, Pascal.
Toby Taylor from Industry, thank you for everything that you've done, and sincere best of wishes in your new endeavors. I know you'll be amazing at it, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tom Keeper's here as well. Really impressed with you in the short term. I had a chance to work, and even just corresponding with you after our first meeting, I'm like, oh, this person's on a ball. So clearly you're going to be hugely missed. Best of luck.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
All right, with that, I see Steve's hand raised, so we'll start with Steve.
Well, I think people know I hold Fauna in extremely high regard, and she's always been extremely hardworking, collaborative, knowledgeable. Those are terms I'd use for her. She was probably the first person from DCA, other than the legal suits, that I had the opportunity to meet. Our regulations started in December 5 of 2016 in the legislative process. And by August of 2017, in the final negotiations, Fauna was a DCA legislative analyst, and her and I went back and forth on a couple of things. And, she stands her ground, but so did I. And I think a couple times she was wondering where I was coming from, and me the same. But, everyone wanted the best, but we had divergent and very strong opinions on what that was. But through the process, we came to have mutual respect. And from that, trust was formed. And as I said, I hold her in very high regard. I speak with her on a regular basis. She's always been there to kind of give me the latest and greatest, and to kind of like make sure that I understand where they're coming from. And she always listened to what we had to say. So, our transition and her part in it was so major and such a big deal. I was telling a close friend of mine that, what important person was leaving just for the fact of to go find themselves, to improve their own personal life. And he agreed with me that that was very rude. So, I have the greatest respect for you, and I hope that our paths cross again. And I wish you nothing but the best in the rest of your career. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Steve.
And I see Dan's hand is raised.
Well, I prematurely was thanking Fauna earlier, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it again. Fauna, everything. From the first moment that we met each other, I didn't realize that I had gotten off on the wrong foot with you, but you stood up, you said something, we saw eye to eye. I appreciate your respect, your dedication, all your hard work, and thank you again for everything through COVID too. Until somebody just mentioned it, I kind of forgot that you had jumped into the position, and wish you the best of luck and be sending you lots of positive thoughts and prayers along the way.
Thank you, Dan.
Any other council comment?
Yeah, this is Don Lucas. I want to make public the email that I sent Fauna when she announced that she was leaving. So Fauna, thank you for your service for all of us in California. Your work not only impacted California, but the nation and the world. I know you will keep up your good work in your new position. I expect more great things from you. You are the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
And with that, we'll open it to public comment. Any public comment on this item? I know, you're almost done, Fauna.
We're opening up We're opening up the Q&A to facilitate public comment on Fauna's departure. If you would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or you can look for the question mark icon and type comment into the text field and click send. And our call-in users can use *3 to raise your hand. All right, you can stop blushing now. We're closing public comment.
Well, I want to thank all the advisory council members in the room and online. Thanks for your support when I was acting, especially. That was a rough year. But, you know, you guys were always super responsive, helpful, and, you know, you made my job easier. So thank you guys for everything that, for all your help. And Justin achieved his goal and made me cry. Well, all of you guys did.
All right, with that, thank you so much, Fauna. We'll move on to agenda item number 10. This is just a quick checkup. We'll kind of do each meeting just to make sure it works for the council members. For this item, I'm just want to reconfirm that we'll do a June 14th again, same location physically, and we'll also open it up to the WebEx. I don't remember how long our exemption goes. I think we're through the fiscal year, but I can't quite remember. But we'll plan to have a hybrid for the June meeting, and as long as it's legally permissible, we'll do the same type of hybrid for the October meeting. I just wanted to check and see if anyone had any concerns with the dates. So first to the council in the room. All right, council online, any concerns with the dates?
Nope.
All right, and let's just open it to public comment briefly. Thank you.
Certainly, if anyone would like to comment on the dates for future meetings, you can look for the question mark icon and type comment and send, or you can look for the raise hand icon, click that, and we'll call on you. And if any call-in user has input on the dates, you can use *3 to raise your hand. No public comment on the dates. So I'll close the Q&A.
All right, thank you so much, Ann. Moving on to our penultimate, just so I can use it for once, agenda item, future agenda items for our June and or our October meeting. With that, Toby briefly spoke with me, so I'm going to turn it over to him first to speak on that.
Thank you, Chief Paddock. Toby Taylor with Industry. As the members and staff, as we move forward with ignition interlock language, if any, I don't know what level of understanding the members have regarding the devices and the technology, and so wanted to offer a high-level review of what ignition interlock devices are and how the program works in California and what this advisory council's role would be around that industry in the state. If that's something that the members think you would benefit from, I'm happy to sit down and work with some folks to put something together to either do at the June or October meeting. Again, high level, just I don't suspect very many folks on the advisory council have had one. but we're happy to install one in your car and let you have a go with it if you'd like. So let me know if that's something you guys are interested in doing. If not, we understand, but if you are, we'll be happy to put something together.
I would request, Toby, I think my wife would like me to install one that detects fast food.
Absolutely. We can do that. Yep. And if you got kids, we're happy to accommodate them as well. Most parents love it.
Any objections? I think what we'll do is we'll just make sure we have some time on the agenda, and we'll get some slides, both from Toby and from Dan, to do sort of like a presentation. I know I'm putting Dan on the spot.
Toby and I have known each other long enough that maybe we could work together on doing that. You know, it's only been like 20 some odd years that we've been playing in the same arena, so I think we could.
Yeah, for sure.
We can
We'll
get
get
along
something put together
and make that together. And I was thinking, Toby, you know, it doesn't require GPS.
Dan, I think we lost you. Can you say that again? Dan, I think we lost you. Can you say that again? Oh, I think Dan's having some technical difficulty. Okay, we're almost there. Any other agenda items that the council would like to make?
I apologize. I got kicked off.
Can we talk about consumer outreach and what?
Oh, 1 second, Dan. I'll come right back to you.
Can we kind of explore our consumer outreach program?
Yes, I'm happy in June to give you an outreach update. As I mentioned, I hope to be just a couple of weeks away from announcing to you a new deputy chief, and one of their primary things is going to be outreach, so I'm happy to do that in June. Any additional items from the council? Dan, sorry, I stepped on you.
No, you didn't actually. I think my phone just decided to switch me over, so I apologize. No, I was saying that you know, our machines have GPS, and so you know, we could probably accommodate your wife's desire to have a GPS on whether or not you're going to drive.
Excellent. All right. Any additional from the council online for future agenda items? All right, Ann, do you mind opening this to public comment?
Absolutely. We've opened up the Q&A for suggestions for future agenda items. If you'd like to suggest something, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or you can raise your hand and we will call on you, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. And I see no requests to comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you so much. And I see it fitting for Fauna to take us out. Fauna?
Thank you, everybody, for their participation, everyone who traveled and those who could not travel but joined online. Thank you guys for everything. The council stands adjourned.
Thank you, Fauna.
Thank you, Fauna, and everyone.